Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the fifth race of the season for the G-Force Grand National Series. We're here at the mile-and-a-half Las Vegas Motor Speedway getting set for qualifying for the Belly Up Sports 100. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Samuel Dyer. And Sam, I wasn't able to be here the first mile-and-a-half track these drivers are at. That was 3 weeks ago at Charlotte, but coming off back-to-back short track races, what type of racing are we expecting to see here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway?
We're expecting these drivers really, if we go green, it's going to be close pack racing for the first about 10 to 15 laps. Then cars are going to start to split up and you're going to see defined mini packs of cars and where they're going to be running. And it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers react here at Las Vegas. It's kind of a multiple groove track that allows you to have chances to work at different areas. The low line is going to work for most of these drivers to try to make passes, but the high line is still going to be strong to be able to hold off other drivers. And with fresher tires, you're really able to make that outside line work. Also, something else to keep our eye out on is the fact that we're going to be going from a day to night transition for these drivers. The track's going to cool off, a lot more grip, and a lot more speed.
Obviously, last week we're coming off the crazy chaos of Bristol, where we saw Jeff Green take it 3 wide on the final lap, able to pick up his first win of the season. Subsequently, jumped up in the point standings as well. Currently scored 6th in points, but the battle for the points lead has actually closed up quite a good bit after Bristol last week as well. Gerald Campbell only 20 points over John Whitendorf, only 31 points over Dallas Myhand. Las Vegas is one of those type of tracks where we definitely see strategy come into play, whether it be fuel strategy, whether it just be plain old pit strategy. Do we see Las Vegas shake up the points even more?
Well, the driver I'm watching out for is Gerald Campbell. I mean, this 25 machine has been very consistent at the mile-and-a-half courses, and someone that I'm expecting to have a good run here today. Other drivers to watch out for: Jeff Green, after getting his win last week, he's another driver coming up with momentum to watch out for. But mile-and-a-half track really is just a different animal for these drivers here in the ARCA cars. It just gives you a different feel of how you want to attack these corners compared to what short track's been giving these drivers.
We're currently in a little bit of a waiting process here. We were en route to have our record number of drivers ready to take to the track here tonight. I think we had counted about 34 or 35 drivers that were going to be trying to take the green flag here tonight. Subsequently, there was a little bit of an error in the server being put together, so that's why we had the starting soon screen up there and everything, and we're actually waiting, I think, here for a couple of drivers to still be able to get in, so that way we can begin qualifying. But a big thing for that is because of the big field that's scheduled to run here tonight, we're actually, it looks like for the first time this season, going to see that heat race come into play.
Yeah, usually that heat race gives us the time to talk to some of the drivers and get their thoughts on this race. And this time around, we're going to get a quick preview of how the driver's going to react once we get to our heat race. But due to the fact that we're going to have over 30 drivers racing, only 30 officially will be racing. That means some drivers aren't going to make it to our 100-lap featured race. Only 26 make it in through qualifying, and then 4 spots are open for the heat race to figure out where you're going to be. That means 4 drivers will not make it in if we have all 34 drivers that were in the previous lobby, if they all show up to this one.
And it's interesting because we were talking pre-broadcast about, possible strategy of making sure you make it into the show. And, there's a couple of drivers that we've seen the last couple of weeks. They've struggled in qualifying. One name that kind of leaps to the forefront is Kyle Johnson. We saw him get up into the wall at Richmond. He had connection problems during qualifying last week at Bristol. He's been good when the green flag flies. He's been very consistent. He comes into this race 8th in the point standings. But with the fact that 4 drivers right now, it looks like would be going home, you really cannot afford to make a mistake here in this qualifying session.
Yeah, and also AJ DiMarzio is another driver that is in the same stage that we've been seeing Kyle Johnson in, of not having the best qualifying time. So both those drivers got to watch out, got to make sure that they hit their marks and have a good qualifying run. And another thing you got to watch out for is with drivers pushing as hard as they can here during qualifying, trying to be on top of the board. Make sure you're inside of that top 26. The outside wall is something that's going to be tricky for these drivers. Also, a little bit of a hint of looseness in the middle of these corners. So if you turn a little bit too much, you can find your back end kicking out from under you.
Yeah, and of course, we know that in the race, drivers tend to kind of back down the pace a little bit, settle in for the long run, try and keep their cars in one piece. In qualifying, it's really all systems go. They're going to have to kind of channel it back a little bit, I think, there as well. They can't ask too much of the race car for fear of either spinning up or getting up into the wall. We know that if contact is made with the outside wall, that lap time is completely thrown away.
Yeah, and you really don't want to hit that wall at all. Don't want to lose any type of momentum as drivers are slowly lining up and trying to get ready here as we're waiting for a few more drivers to be loaded into the server, and then we'll get going here for qualifying as drivers are finally lining up here. Seth, qualifying about to start.
Yeah, we're going to keep focused for the moment on Caden Thur in the 57, who was really impressive in his debut last week at Bristol. Yes, he finished with a DNF, but he spent at least the first half of that race up inside of the top 7, so we'll see how he does in his second start. And there is the car that is first out, I believe. It's going to be the 48 of Jonathan Leach, that number 48 Ally Chevy Impala about to get qualifying underway.
Yeah, gonna get out onto the racing surface, leading the way here for qualifying, and these drivers getting ready for this featured race. It's gonna be the Belly Up Sports 100 for them here at Las Vegas, and excited to see how these drivers are gonna go as Leach going into 3 and 4, about to get this lap started.
You know, these guys were at Richmond and Bristol in the last 2 weeks. The bigger tracks, a lot of times drivers will say that your qualifying lap is really going to be dependent on how you get off pit road coming to the start-finish line for your warm-up lap. I mean, is there any tricks of the trade these drivers might utilize there to try and gain just that little bit of extra speed?
Yeah, I mean, the tricks that these drivers are going to be thinking about is when you're on your out lap, right before you start the cross finish line, is to run as high as you can. Try to get those RPMs as high as they can go, and then carry that momentum off the corner. As you see here, Leach trying the middle groove through 3 and 4, coming across the line. What is our benchmarker going to look like for this driver? It looks like it's going to be a 31.1. Actually, it's going to be a 31.161 coming across the line. First driver on board, Jonathan Leach.
Very good lap there for Jonathan Leach, who did not set down a lap time in practice. And right now, that would have put him around 29th on the board based off of the practice results that we had. So a pretty solid lap there to start things out for the 48. And here comes the 57 of Caden Thur, that M&M Chevrolet.
Yeah, and us looking at the way that practice went. Practice, the track was very hot. It was in the middle of the day. It was around 70 to 75 degrees the drivers were working with. Here during qualifying, the track temp, 66 degrees of track temp. Outside temp 66 as well. So it's a cool track out there. A lot of grip to be found for these drivers.
And more so with it being a bigger track, we don't really know, just based on the practice times we have in front of us, how many of those were related to possible draft laps of being able to get maybe a tow down the long back or front straightaway. So it'll be interesting to see if our drivers that were at the top of the board in practice, if they'll be able to match those lap times when it comes to trying to lay down the pole lap. As Caden Thor blinking a little bit there. Let's see if they still score him, as he was reappeared at the start finish line, and he will get a 30.749.
Yeah, and blinking is a major issue to be watching out for these drivers. If you find yourself blinking for a large portion of your qualifying lap time, the lap won't count, and you're going to be starting in the back of the field, and you're going to be starting and trying to run through the heat race, and you do not want your fate to be in the heat race, because it's going to be a dogfight for those drivers. 10 laps is going to be the heat race. It's not a lot of time to make any big moves.
Talked about practice being in the mid-afternoon conditions, qualifying here in the twilight conditions. Well, if we compare the practice lap of Caden Thur to his qualifying lap, he picked up 0.7 of a second there. So a lot of time able to be gained here for each one of these drivers.
Yeah, a lot of time to be gained, and if you make a mistake, a lot of time to be lost. As right now, continuing to see as Jordan Owens on track in that 22 machine. Jordan, someone who's been looking pretty consistent in the middle part of the field most of the time when he's on track. It's coming through 3 and 4, 22 cars, looking pretty good.
Yeah, it looks really good right now. Let's see if he can top Caden Thur at the top of the board. Not quite. He's going to come up just a little bit short there, as he's going to be 0.2 off, 30.901 for the driver of the Logitech Chevrolet. Like the next driver we're going to have coming out here is going to be another driver that is going to be making his debut, and that's James Goshen in the number 85.
Yeah, James Goshen. We've been seeing new debut drivers every single week, and we actually have a few coming into this week. It looks like Goshen, one of those drivers in this 85 machine, rocking some red, white, and blue on that car. Good-looking machine that he's got. And right now, looking at these times, I'm concerned about Jonathan Leach with that 31.1. I think he really needed to get into the 30s if he wanted a chance here as Goshen getting ready to go.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. A long ways to go here in qualifying as James Goshen takes the green flag. Only one lap of qualifying for these drivers, and it's like he's going to run the second groove. We saw earlier the 22 of Jordan Owens put his car right down there on the white line. So it's going to really be interesting to see if maybe you scrub off a little bit of speed running way down there on the bottom, if maybe that middle line is the faster way around the track.
Yeah, and you're seeing that there is a line there as Goshen coming across the line here. We'll see what his lap time's going to be. And that is not a fast time. Extremely slow. Slowest driver so far, Goshen with a 31.285. Slower than what even Leach put down, and I was concerned about Leach's time.
1,000 slower than what he ran in practice. Talking about James Goshen. So maybe not hooking the bottom was detrimental to that qualifying lap, as you were concerned about Jonathan Leach. Maybe be concerned here as well about James Goshen and the possibility of him having to take part in that heat race later on, as it looks like the next driver we're going to have out there is going to be, I believe, Benjamin Staples. We're waiting to see if he's going to get cleared to roll off of pit road, and indeed he will. So here comes the Monster Ford Fusion.
Yeah, Benjamin, really another driver who we haven't seen this season, another debut here, and you talked about the fact that these drivers got to figure out how to hook up on that inside line. I mean, there is a more grayed out, a darker gray in the middle portion of this racetrack, and that's where these drivers are going to be looming a lot once we get into a longer run. That's when you're going to be seeing drivers really trying to focus. But Benjamin's got to be careful. He just blinked coming into corner number 4 there. If he blinks at all around some of these important zones coming around the track, this lap could be invalidated, and he also is loose. He's already losing it. And that's what I was talking about in the center of the corner. If you just put a little bit too much wheel, you turn a little bit too much in the corner, the back end just wants to snap on you. A great save by Benjamin, but honestly scrubbing off way too much time, but at least didn't hit the wall. He should not get this lap invalidated as he comes across the line here. It's gonna be close.
Yeah, it definitely, even though he didn't hit anything, complete the lap, because you never know what's going to happen. There could be 4 or 5 drivers after you that could run into some issues here, and you might be able to squeak your way into the main event, not having to worry about taking part in that heat. So credit to Benjamin Staples, number 1 for gathering it up, number 2 for at least completing the lap here, because you never know what's going to happen in qualifying. Still very early stages of this qualifying session, as here comes one of our drivers up there near the top of the point standings. 3rd in points, Dallas Myhan, now getting ready to head out onto the track. And we've seen Dallas Myhan the last couple of weeks actually not really be up there near the top of the board in the practice speeds, be one of the earlier cars out, kind of set the tone for drivers to try and shoot for that pole lap.
Yeah, it doesn't always have the fastest during practice, but seems like when qualifying comes around, Dallas Myhan's able to put down some very nice and quick lap times that puts him inside the top 10. But here today, with how big the field is going to be, you're really looking for at least to qualify in the top 15, if not the top 10, to feel at least comfortable with the drivers you're going to be challenging with, because like you said, there's a possibility of drivers making a mistake and putting themselves in that heat race. And if you have too many strong cars in that heat race, it's going to be a battle for sure, and you don't want to be stuck there.
Well, he was able to hook the bottom. Let's see what it translates to. 30.838. That's actually going to be second on the board. A little less than a tenth off of Caden Thur's 30.7. So Dallas Myhan does not grasp the pole away from the 57, at least for the moment.
And we are now looking to see who the next driver is going to be. I believe it's going to be the 5 of Eric Schaefer. Is going to be now taking off from here, and he'll be starting his lap time.
Here's an interesting question for you, Sam. I mean, we've talked to drivers during the qualifying sessions of Richmond and Bristol. We obviously kind of knew the answer before we asked it of them, but about track position, how important was it going to be starting up at the front? Do we see as much of an emphasis of starting at the front here at a track as wide as Las Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, track position is always something you want to focus on. If you find yourself stuck, especially with the fact that this is going to be the first time that we're going to actually have a completely full 30-car field, these drivers are thinking about, hey, we have to make sure that we're at least up front. You don't want to be in the middle of the pack because that's just a danger zone. There's going to be a lot of drivers making a lot of really reckless moves, most likely, as Schaefer's going to get out of shape as well. Going to be able to save it for now, overcorrects it, completely loops it, and still able to get going. A little bit of finesse for the 5-car, but he's got to make sure he doesn't hit the wall. This isn't looking good for Schaefer, as he was needing a good lap time here for the 5-car. And with that little bit of a spill, this could be putting him back in those heat races.
Very impressive there. You saw as soon as that car got out of shape, he turned the front wheels to the right to make sure that he was not going to slide up into the wall. Almost overcorrected into the wall, but a tremendous job of saving it. He's going to cross the line officially with, well, they may not have scored him.
Due to the fact that he went too out of control, that lap time was not going to count. If you go way too out of control, you actually will invalidate your lap. And it looks like that is exactly what happened to the 5-car, which due to the fact that that lap was not valid, that most likely automatically is going to put Schaefer in that heat race for the LCQ.
Yeah, undoubtedly. As now Jason Houndshell is going to head out onto the track. 9th in the point standings is Jason. Jason, along with Dallas Myhand, were involved in some early incidents last week at Bristol, but were able to bounce back to somewhat decent finishes. And Jason trying to see what he's going to be able to do here at Las Vegas. One thing that I've been noticing with a number of these drivers, they've really been seeming to have a lot of difficulty holding that inside line. A lot of these cars either get loose trying to turn it way down there to the white line on entry, or they seem to get a little bit tight and drift up off of turn 2. Nobody's really been able to hook it right down there with their left sides on that white line.
Yeah, and it's a risk to go that low on this course. It's a lot more of you'll want to be hugging just the edge of that inside line, but running more of the second groove if you want a chance for a real good hot lap. And just like that, Jason Houndshell crossed the line at 30.801, and that's going to be second best, as Thurn going to be still top of the board with that 57 machine.
So Houndshell get just a little loose there off of turn 4, as now it'll be the Dr. Pepper Chevrolet. Another driver making his first start of the season, and that is Joshua Personette.
Yeah, Personette going to be part of the PRM guys. Going to be trying to make a charge here. And we've seen Personette in a lot of other leagues that we have broadcast previously. And it's always good to see Joshua Personette out on track, this time rocking the 11 machine. And just like I said, on these outlaps, you want to be more on that high line, but make sure you don't hit the wall coming out of the corner. That's the risk of trying to get as much speed on this front stretch.
And of course, that apron down on the front straightaway is not considered out of bounds. It is legal, and so a lot of drivers are obviously going to be utilizing that shorter way on the front straightaway. Well, you can just watch the back end of that 11. Looks like it wants to step out just the least little bit there a couple of times through 1 and 2. Keeps it straight for the moment, does Personette. Ooh, looked pretty good there through 3 and 4. It was a little bit lower than most drivers have been able to get their race cars. We'll see if this is going to be a lap time to maybe put him top of the board. Clocks in with a 30.860. That will score him in 4th. So as of right now, Caden Thur is the only driver that's been able to hit the sub 30.8s.
Yeah, and also looks like one of the drivers that has locked himself into the race here today is going to be that 57 machine. Everyone else, want to finish in the top couple of positions, because now we've already seen it's looking like a lot of these drivers, they're needing some better runs than what they're getting right now.
Ernest King, 14th in points, will head on out here for his qualifying lap at number 24 Chevrolet. Ernest has been really impressive here. last couple of weeks as well. He's been kind of a mainstay up inside of the top 15 in both of our short track races at Richmond and Bristol, and we'll see what he's going to be able to do here tonight at the Mile and a Half Las Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Ernest is someone that he's been caught up in some wrecks here or there, but overall has shown that he's got speed. He's averaged a top 16 finish for himself. So exciting to see what this 24 car has as he's starting his qualifying lap.
We're going to run the middle groove there through 1 and 2. Tries to bring it down low, kind of straddling that transition seam between the inside and the middle line was Ernest King. Not certain this is going to be a pole lap because he's running just around the same groove that Dallas Myhand was running, but we'll see. A lot of times it comes down to just how steady the wheel is, how steady the back end is, as to how much speed you produce, and 31.804 for Ernest King right now. That puts him 8th of the 9 drivers that have taken time and the 10 drivers that have been out on track so far.
Yeah, that was not the best lap time for Ernest King. He needed to go faster, and you touched on the fact that he looked like he was running a little bit too high, and I think that was the big issue. Also looked like he just didn't have the confidence to, go in and keep himself in the throttle a little bit longer or even get on the throttle a little bit quicker. Just, a little bit lenient on how aggressive he wanted to run here during qualifying.
So now it will be the NOS Chevrolet, number 84 of Peyton Hill, who I believe made his debut last week at Bristol. Comes into this race 33rd in the point standings, and so we got to see him at a short track. Now we're going to get to see what he can do at a mile and a half track, as trying, as you said, run that higher groove through 3 and 4, get as much momentum, as much speed down the front straightaway to begin his qualifying lap.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to see how the drivers that did have their debut race during these last couple of short tracks, how they are going to react to the mile and a half, because there's some drivers, as Hill gets extremely out of shape in the center of 1 and 2. This is not looking good for a good lap time, as you touched on it. It's about being smooth, and how smooth can you keep your car while also being fast. This 84 machine, I'm not expecting it to be on top of the board, but maybe a 5th place for qualifying, as here comes Payne Hill across the line here, as it's going to be a 31.188, best 7th so far on the board. And it was just that wiggling motion that we saw through the corners that really hurt this machine. But I'm interested to see how the mile and a half drivers are going to come out, because some drivers just like the mile and a halves way more than the short tracks.
We're seeing a little bit of everything here right now with the way these cars are handling for these drivers. We're seeing loose in, and right there in the case of what we just saw with Peyton Hill, we saw a little bit of tight off of turn 2. So it's almost kind of like go into turn 1 and take a guess of what the car is going to do for these drivers.
Yeah, it really is. Is Shane Lake now going to be on track in that blue frosted AEW machine? And, looking at how Shane Lake's been running, he's been putting on some decent qualifying positions, but it seems like during the race, just luck has not been on the side of the 81 machine.
Yeah, he definitely struggled at Richmond, had a couple of early issues at Bristol, but actually battled back for a really decent finish and comes into this race 21st in the standings as a result, as that car looked pretty steady there through 1 and 2. Let's see what he's able to do here through 3 and 4. Still running that second groove. Yeah.
Yeah. This is
it's safe. It's safe. I mean, not really seeing any cars get out of shape when they run that middle groove, but at the same time, you're not making up the speed you need to.
And that's going to be a 31.029, 6th on the board. And we've had a total of 12 drivers that have qualified. Eric Schaefer's lap did not count, but was the 12th driver to put a lap down for himself. And we're looking at some drivers back here that really staple, as well as Schaefer. They're most likely confirmed to be in the qualifying run, if everyone's going to be running just as safe as we saw Lake run there.
Yeah, you've also got a couple of other drivers that ran into some issues there, with Leach having a slow lap, and James Goshen with a slow lap. I mean, right now, and you can weigh in on this, I would say that if you're any of these drivers in the midway portion of this qualifying session, you're shooting for a lap time that at least would have you scored maybe somewhere in the realm of about 5th to 7th, and you'd be safe to make it into at least the drivers that would be locked into the field, not having to rely on being in that heat.
Yeah, that's really the window that you're looking for these drivers. Is it looks like not everyone has come back for the qualifying, so we're missing a few drivers that were in the first session but could not make it to the second session. Which looks like Nick Radar, one of those drivers that could not make it, as Peyton Hamlet going to be on track. And Hamlet was a quick car back at Bristol, but got into the outside wall a couple of times that really hurt this 10 machine and ultimately put him in a pretty, questionable spot at the end of the race.
Qualified well at Bristol last week as well. Started 11th position. Let's see where he clocks in here at Las Vegas. As again, another driver that really was not able to hook the bottom, and he is going to clock in 10th right now of the 12 drivers that put down time, 31.364. So I don't know if when we're going to get up here to some of these drivers that we know are going to be in the conversation for the pole, are we going to see them be brave enough and run the risk of trying to hook the bottom? Or are they going to try and run that middle line as well just to make sure they make it into the show?
Yeah, I mean, Gerald Campbell, as well as Tyler Riggs, Jeff Green, Blaine Atkin, those are some of your favorites to get a pole position here for the Dirty Racing pole position. And it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers work up to get to that point. But this is going to be interesting for sure for these drivers. Is on track now. It's going to be the 07 of Seth Harrelson.
19th in the points coming into this race as he's going to save it out of turn 2. But again, another driver that's going to have a lot of time scrubbed off of his speed. And that's going to hurt him. It's going to be interesting to see where this is going to situate him when this qualifying session's all said and done.
Yeah, that is not the way that you want to be exiting out of turn number 2. Harrelson coming across the line, a 34.208. Got to be 12th on the board for now. And yeah, that is not good to see.
And the good news, I guess, if there is any good news, the fact that he really didn't spin out. He was able to gather it up rather quickly, as opposed to other drivers that we saw actually completely spin around there on the back straightaway. So he's ahead of those drivers, but still could find himself down in the danger zone. Is now Randy Koken, another driver that has struggled with qualifying the last couple of weeks, heads out on track.
Yeah, I mean, the only safe spot you can be in is in that 26th position. And these drivers that right now are in the top 5 of qualifying at the moment, they are good and they are locked in for the race, which is, a lot off their pressure. Dallas Myhan, that is based off the laps that we've been seeing, that 30.838 might be good enough. As, like you said, Randy Koken on the board now, trying to get this lap started for this 19 machine.
Now, I got to wonder here, obviously these drivers going out here, single car qualifying, I have to wonder if maybe there's some rubber that's being laid down there on the racetrack, making it slightly slicker for some of these later drivers in this qualifying session to go out there.
I mean, I think it's more of a mental really difference for these drivers. Mentally, they're thinking, okay, we've seen these drivers making mistakes. I just got to hit my groove. Randy Koken, best qualifying so far I could think of, a 31.136, 7th on the board. And that's a great run for this 19 machine. But I think it's a lot more of a mental issue for these drivers, as right now they're seeing, hey, there's not a lot of cars that have had as many mistakes as we were expecting. And if there wasn't this heat race that could knock me out of the featured race, I think a lot of these drivers would be trying to push as hard as they could. A lot more mistakes to be seen, just because there's that little bit of a safety net if there wasn't a full field here.
Randy Koken has an average starting position of 17th. He might actually have his best starting position of the season, depending on what happens here in the remainder of this qualifying session, as we're now looking at AJ DeMarzo in the 5 car. DeMarzo coming into this race currently scored 23rd in the standings. He's got an average starting position of 22nd, and boy, I don't think he spun it, but having some issues there out of turn 2. I don't know what's going on with his machine.
I think there might have been a miscommunication of some sorts, but that's the lap for that 55 machine. And he is officially done after putting that lap down.
Wow. So AJ DeMarzo, right now it's got him scored with a 3-minute 20-second lap time. And that's basically equivalent to going out there and not laying down a lap time at all, to be honest.
Yeah, what happened was he was on pit road, and because his pit stall was before he crossed the line, once he crossed the line, that started his time, and then he waited for other drivers to do their laps, and when he finally took off, he only finished that lap thinking that was his only lap when he actually had another lap to go. As on track, it's going to be Jake Hounshell, who was extremely quick in our first couple of races, came back with a great strike last week, and now Hounshell trying to continue the momentum of some good luck that showed up last week.
Yeah, Bristol was the road to recovery of Richmond, because Richmond, he was en route for a good run there, and then we know that he ended up getting spun over in turn 2, got involved in a wreck with Christopher Morris, and subsequently dropped out of the points lead, as he's going to clock in with a 30.851. That's got him scored 4th on the board currently.
Yeah, and that's such a great time for himself, and being up there in the top 5, really good times. But we're starting to see from these drivers, but no one has bested some of our drivers that are up on top of the board. Also, you got to think Jason's loving this. He just ran faster than his brother.
Yeah, a little bit of sibling rivalry there, as now John Whitendorf heads out on the track. And we talked about the top 3 in the point standings, all being separated by 31 points. You can't really count Jake Hounshell out tonight as well. Only 43 points back out of that points lead. So certainly, depending on how much of a part Las Vegas wants to play into the point standings, we could maybe see Hounshell be back up at the top of the point standings after tonight.
Yeah, no, easily could be seeing, Hounshell with the way that he has been very good at the mile and a halfs, as we saw with 87 cars. The ARCA cars, slightly different. Comparatively, they're not as loose as the 87 machines were. As Whitendorf getting out of shape through 1 and 2, and he somehow saves it off the wall. But that 33 machine is wicked loose and not feeling comfortable at the moment.
John Whitendorf, as we mentioned, 2nd in the points, 20 points shy of Gerald Campbell, looking to see if he can qualify into the top 10 yet again. Average starting position of 9th place in the first 4 races, and right now scored in 8th. So his streak of starting inside the top 10 might be coming to a close here at Las Vegas.
Yeah, got to be 8th on the board, and still a lot of very quick machines getting ready to hit the track. It's Joseph Causey in the 8 machine now on the racing surface. Going to be trying to best what he's been seeing on the board so far. And, we talked about how the start of qualifying, track temp, 66 degrees for these drivers. It's still the same track temp. All these drivers, the real difference, like you stated, there's more grip on the track for these drivers, but I mean, yes, there's more grip from the drivers that have gone out periodically throughout this whole entire time, but it doesn't look like visibly on the track that it should be affecting these cars as much as it is. It's more of the fact that I think these drivers just aren't pushing it as much as there goes Causey around, and that's the thing for these drivers. If you're pushing it, you're going to put yourself in that type of a situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, if they were driving the 87 cars that we saw them drive back during the Vintage Clothing 87 series, yeah, we would fully expect to see them getting loose like that. But it's a much taller spoiler on the back of these ARCA cars, and they're rather low to the ground, so surprised to see them get out of shape, as Joseph Causey, 10th in points, will clock in 15th with a 33.411 in that 2007 Coke 600 Dale Jr. scheme.
And now it's going to be James Roth now in the 4 car, going to be trying to get out onto the track. Roth's been an interesting driver to see on course. Roth has some fast cars at some tracks, but also one of those kind of gets caught up in some misfortunes is usually what happens to this 4 machine. And sometimes fortune just lands right in his lap with some of the finishes he's had as well.
Yeah, he's got the car, but the last couple of weeks he just hasn't had the luck. Got spun on the final lap at Richmond, got involved in a big crash last week at Bristol. Comes into this race as a result, currently 18th in the point standings. As see how he looks through turns 1 and 2. Looked fairly steady, at least in turn 1. Looks pretty solid out of turn 2 as well. It's kind of looking like, to me, just based off of what we've seen from the last couple of cars, if you can at least keep your car underneath you, you're probably going to start up inside of the top 15.
Yeah, and that's the goal for most of these drivers. As Roth extremely close to the outside wall, running extremely high. We'll see how much an advantage that was. A 31.059, going to be putting him 8th on the board.
So James Roth looking to, I believe this would put him in line for his best starting position of the season. As I believe the next driver out is going to be our winner from Richmond, and that is Blaine Atkin, the driver that comes into this race 5th in the point standings. If my math is correct, I believe he is a total of 68 points out of the points lead coming into tonight's event.
Yeah, Blaine Atkin really has just been trying to rebound all season long after the way that his season started. Looked like he was going to be our first 2-time winner based on how dominant he was at Richmond and the fact that he should have won back at Nashville, but coming to the white flag, spinning that car around. And that was such a hole because he finished back in 14th place, and he's just been trying to dig out of it all season long. It's Blaine Atkin coming and starting this lap. The 05 machine did not have the fastest during practice, but how fast can he be here during qualifying?
Well, he's told us he loves it when a car is loose going into the corner. That's why he loved the Vintage Clothing 87 series, because of that sensation. That's what he's used to when he drives a car in real life, and that car looked really solid through 1 and 2.
There was a slight wiggle a little bit, but he's doing exactly what we've been saying. Get down on that white line, try to hug it as much as you can. And this 05 machine, Blaine Atkin, is looking quick across the line. A 30.946. That's not even going to put him in the top 5.
Wow, 7th on the board. I mean, that looked like a flyer lap to me. I thought that maybe Caden Thur's pole was in jeopardy, but I guess the old adage, looks can be deceiving, applies right there. Is shocking that it's only a 30.9 that was produced by that lap time of Blaine Atkin. Is now Bo Brady out on track, and man, Bo Brady last week almost was able to pull off that victory at Bristol, but Jeff Green had other ideas, but undoubtedly the best performance Bo Brady's had so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, performance-wise was great. The finish, not optimal for this 20 machine, and Bo Brady really trying to get another great qualifying run, have another fantastic run for himself. And I think overall, it's stay out of trouble and put your car in the best position for a good win. Bo Brady looking pretty solid, but that back end looking a little sketchy at times on the entry of 1 and 2 there. Looked like it wants to pop out, and still in the straightaway, he doesn't look comfortable right now in this 20 machine.
Bobby Allison throwback, 13th in points, knocking on the door of the top 10 in the standings, is off turn number 4. Let's see what he's going to clock in at, as the scoring has him with a 30.036 right now inside the top 10, scored in 9th.
Caden Thor's looking really good right now. That 57 car, that lap time, no one's really been close enough. Jason Hounshell was pretty close at times, Dallas Myhan as well. But those are drivers that qualified in our first about 10 to 15 cars to even qualify. Our final about 10 drivers are going to have to put down some screaming lap times if they want even a chance at this 57 machine.
It's early on in the season, and when you either don't make a race or miss a race, whichever the case may be, it really hurts you in the point standings. Of course, last week, as we know, Christopher Morse Jr. had to take on the off-track admin duties at Bristol, dropped from 6th to 17th in the point standings. So certainly on a bit of a comeback trail is Christopher Morse Jr., but nice to see him back behind the wheel of that Goodwrench Chevrolet.
Yeah, and it's going to be a giant hole to try to dig himself out of, because the drivers that are in the top 5, top 10 of points, they've been very consistent. Christopher Morse Jr. looking a little bit out of shape there coming out of the corner. I'm nervous for this lap just because of that little bit of a shimmy, but it's going to be a 30.859, going to be putting him up around 5th place.
That's going to definitely lock him at least into the show. And I mean, there's guys down here I'm looking at: AJ DeMarzo, Benjamin Staples, Seth Harlson. These guys have got to be worried right now, because it's looking like the fate of whether they're racing tonight or not is going to be reliant on where they finish in that upcoming heat race.
Yeah, and also you got Eric Schaefer, who wasn't able to put down a lap at all because he got invalidated. So nerve-wracking for these drivers. The driver we missed last week after being suspended for a race, Rocky Boyd, is back in that 77 machine. He's quick every single week he's on track. It's the question of, does he have the temper to keep himself under control and also not being involved in any accidents?
Yeah, got into it back at Richmond, as you said, was not part of the Bristol Fast festivities last week, as the driver that comes into this race 20th in the point standings crosses the line to begin his lap. And we know that Rocky Boyd's one of those drivers that's not afraid to put his car in maybe a dangerous position. I wondered if he was going to be one of those we'd see drive it deep into turn one, but no, instead running that middle groove through 1 and 2.
Yeah, and right now putting on a decent time for the 77 machine. He's trying to hug it low, not exactly on the white line, but still he's hitting the apex right at the white line. And that's kind of where you want to be hitting his marks, not always just hugging it. A 30.745, that's going to be putting him around the top of the board, beating out Thorne by 4 thousandths of a second.
Holy cow, it was literally thousandths of a second that Rocky Boyd right now holds the pole position if things do not change, as now Tom Bourne going to bring his number 54 Monster Energy machine out there. Tom was en route to a good run last week at Bristol I'm sorry, actually, if I remember correctly, it was actually at Richmond, and got involved in the wreck on the back straightaway and then ended up getting nailed, I think it was by Nick Radar. That subsequently took him out of that race.
Yeah, that was at Bristol last week. Nick Radar did never let off the gas, just came in like a missile, and absolutely took out the 54 machine after they were kind of caught up in an incident. As Tom Bourne looking a little out of shape, able to save it though. That's not the worst slide we have seen, and that might be the fact that he saved it. That could keep him inside of the top 26 if he can somehow keep himself in the top 20 before these drivers are done putting lap times down.
Yeah, at least kept his momentum, so looks like he will, to your point, still be in the main show, as he's going to cross the line 19th on the board with a 31.474. I think that's just the goal right now for most of these other drivers here getting ready to finish out this qualifying session, is just keep the car in one piece, make it around from the green flag to the checkered flag. Doesn't matter really where you qualify, just make sure you're not going to have to be in that heat race. As here's last week's winner, Jeff Green, coming off the momentum of a wild couple of laps at the end of that Bristol race.
Yeah, it was a crazy race at the end of Bristol. That got me up off my feet and just chanting and seeing where it was going to go. Jeff Green on the outside trying to get as much heat into those tires. It looked like he was wiggling through the corner trying to figure out how to get heat in there. So maybe he can get a better run here. Jeff Green, he's going to be, of the drivers that are left, there's 7 drivers left, including Jeff Green, put laps down, meaning that we're going to have 31 drivers trying to
the wall.
That's not good.
He was down on the white line, the furthest down of any driver in 1 and 2, but it pushed him up off of turn 2 into the outside wall. We'll see if it's going to score him here after making some pretty extensive contact with the right side of his machine. And no, it will not.
So Jeff Green and Eric Schaefer are part of the 2 machines that have not officially clocked a lap time in. And this is not good for the drivers that are going to be in that heat race. When I was talking about how many drivers are left, we now have 6 drivers that are going to be putting times down. And due to the fact that there are 6 drivers to put lap times down, the top right now, Tom Bourne is on that bubble of just making it because of where he qualified.
Anthony Guarneri now getting ready to go out there 12th in points. And we have to remember here too, this isn't a charter system series. This isn't a series where if you've won a race, you get a provisional. Jeff Green, because of that, 1 week after going to victory lane, is going to have to race his way into the main event in the upcoming heat race.
Yeah, and right now, there's going to be 5 cars, other ones that are in the lobby and are doing qualifying right now. 5 cars are going to be racing in that heat race. 1 will not be making it to the featured race. So there's going to be 1 broken heart here tonight, as Guarneri on track, going to be trying to set as fast as a lap time as possible. But at this point, due to the fact of how many drivers have just been having so many miscues, just hit your marks and run safe. If you have to run in the middle of the corner, do that, because you don't really have to push it right now.
Yeah, the question of us thinking, why are they running that middle groove where it clearly does not seem to be the faster way around the track? I think Jeff Green just proved to us why, because he ran right down there on the white line. Next thing we know, he's pushing up into the wall. So apparently just the way maybe these cars are set up, you're not able to drive it as deep as you instinctually would like to.
Yeah, and a lot of these drivers, they're aiming for that white line. Granary coming across the line here, and that's going to be a 30.965. Going to be putting him 10th on the board and locking himself in securely into the next round.
Good lap there for Guarneri, who in his starts this season has an average starting position of 13th. So he has started just outside of the top 10 in most of his starts this season. As we're waiting for the next driver to head on out, which I believe is going to be another driver making a debut, Jackson McLaren in the number 7 machine.
Yeah, Jackson in the 7 machine, going to be our third Monster Energy drink machine out there on course. So expecting to see a lot of black and green out there for these drivers. Officially, right now, Eric Schaefer is going to be the first car into the heat and going to be involved in our heat race due to the cars that have already wrecked out of qualifying of Jeff Green and Eric Schaefer, and those that have already qualified. Right now, with how many cars are left, these drivers that have had mistakes during qualifying, they are getting nervous and a slightly irritant of how the qualifying has gone for themselves. But here comes the 7 machine trying his qualifying lap.
As you said, only a few drivers left to go out there and put down some lap times. Those drivers that were in the midway portion of the pack going out there, we kind of put around 7th to 10th, somewhere in that area is where they needed to be qualified when they crossed the line. Obviously, that bar goes down a little bit the further you get into qualifying. So some of these other guys, what are we looking at? Maybe at least in the top 20?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the board. The top 20. I mean, if you at least get in the top 20, you are set and good for these final drivers. As McLaren going to be getting 18th on the board, and that's going to be pushing a lot of drivers down. That's now putting on the bubble of AJ DiMarzio, and that's not where you want to be at all, especially with the quality of drivers that are left.
Well, we talked about the qualifying woes of Kyle Johnson the last 2 weeks, but he has translated them into terrific runs at both Richmond and Bristol. So everybody cross your fingers here that nothing happens to this 88 car for this qualifying run, because, you know, the speed we see out of him moving from the back to the front the last 2 weeks, it would really be interesting to see how that speed translates with a good starting track position.
Yeah, and you know, with this pace that he has, he's got a top 10 car every single week. It's more of, like we said, the qualifying runs. He's running low, and that's where we've been seeing issues for some of these drivers. You got to be careful when you're trying to run that low.
Well, the car looked pretty good there off of 2. He was able to keep it off the outside wall. Drives it right down to the white line there through 3 and 4, and that car looked somewhat stable. Let's see if this might be something that could challenge for the pole. At the line, clocks in with a 30.764, comes up just about 2/100 short, currently scored in 3rd.
Yeah, it's a great time, and that's exactly what Kyle Johnson needs, with some of the faster drivers having issues on the back half. I mean, Tom Bourne, who was one of the top 10 cars coming into qualifying, he's going to be all the way in the back of the field, going to be starting way back in the 20s. And then you've also find yourselves with Causey back here, and also Jeff Green going to be up going. There's a lot of question marks of who's going to make it out, and Tyler Riggs now going to be on track, seeing if he can finish a lap here, or will he be going through the heat races.
Yeah, Tyler Riggs started out the season really, really well, but the short tracks were not his friends. He has dropped outside of the top 10, the points 11th in the standings coming into tonight's event. So probably one of those drivers very happy to be back at the 1.5 mile speedway configuration and carrying the sponsor title for tonight's race as well, Belly Up Sports. So obviously would love to give them a good performance in that Chevrolet.
Yeah, Tyler Riggs going to be starting this lap. And he loops it. That's exactly what he didn't need to do. And he loops it around. Now it's more of a charge. Can he make sure that he's going to be running a little bit faster than Ernest King or Joseph Causey? Because that slip up could be costly for Tyler Riggs. And you don't want to be seeing more cars in this heat race of drivers that we've been seeing being top 5 cars.
See what he's going to clock in at. Going to be interesting to see how he compares to one particular driver. He's going to be scored 25th, 33.05, or I'm sorry, 509, I should say. And I was going to be interested to see how he compared to Joseph Causey, because it almost looked identical to the near spin his teammate had earlier on this qualifying session.
Yeah, and looking at the drivers, we have two drivers that still need to qualify of Gerald Campbell and Hank Steinmiller. And both these drivers, all they need to do is just run a safe lap and they'll be into the race, as both of them, as long as they run faster than a 33-second lap, they're good to making it in without worrying about the heat race.
It's going to be interesting to watch Hank Steinmiller, because if you look at the statistics coming into this race so far, he's 7th in points, 8th place average finishing position, but a 16th place average starting position. So hasn't exactly been the best when it comes to qualifying. We'll see if he's able to put himself at least up inside of the top 10 in the starting grid here. As you said, one of the last two drivers out onto the track.
Well, we know Staple, DiMarzio, Jeff Green, and Schaefer going to be battling it out to see who's going to be making it into the featured race. As Hank Steinmiller across the line at 30.804, going to be putting them in 4th place on the board. And that's now going to be pushing Tyler Riggs on the bubble, as Gerald Campbell getting ready for his shot in our final driver trying to go for that Dirty Racing Podcast pole position.
Tyler Riggs, you said, on the bubble. His fate of whether he's going to be in the heat race or not rests in the hands of his PRM teammate, Campbell, who won the last time that this series was at 1.5 miles back at Charlotte, trying to see if he can qualify for what I believe would be his 2nd pole, maybe his 3rd pole of the season.
Yeah, right now, Rocky Boy top of the board, as Gerald Campbell is setting up and gearing up. As more so, I'm expecting him to go for a safer lap here.
Yeah, he's basically got to run a lap time better than a 33.509, and he would be safely into the show. Well, that car looked a little sideways going into turn 1, but keeps it under him at least for the moment. Looked pretty good there out of turn 2, and this is looking very much so like a safe lap.
Yeah, right now, Gerald Campbell looking good, but he's hugging that white line, trying to carry as much speed as possible. Now drifting up slightly here. This 25 car, Gerald Campbell trying to go for that pole position, and it's going to be good enough possibly here.
Oh, yeah.
As that's a screaming lap time. Gerald Campbell, once again, getting our Dirty Racing Podcast pole position.
30.678. That is 2/100ths faster than the lap time he put down in the slicker conditions in practice earlier on today. So, as you said, screaming fast lap time for Gerald Campbell, and subsequently, with him being locked into the grid, that now, I believe, as you said, moves Tyler Riggs down there as one of the drivers that has to participate in that LCQ heat.
Yeah, LCQ, it's going to be Tyler Riggs, Seth Harrelson, Benjamin Staple, AJ DiMarzio, Jeff Green, and Eric Schaefer. Those drivers all battling for only 4 positions. Who's going to make it for the 100-lap Belly Up 100 featured race, as these drivers getting stacked up and ready to go? This is going to be a tough one, especially due to the fact that qualifying for these drivers, for most of them, it would have been in the old session. There were some drivers that would have been knocked out of this race. Jeff Green would have been out of this featured race if we were on that old format and the heat race wasn't here.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, you look at some of these guys like Jeff Green and Tyler Riggs. These are drivers that come into this race 6th and 11th in points. And I asked the question earlier, is Las Vegas going to play its part into what the point standards are going to look like? I mean, imagine if either one of those drivers doesn't make it into the main event. That would be a points shakeup and a half, as Tyler Riggs going to start on point alongside of Seth Harrelson. The lineup here for this LCQ based off of the lap times they had there in the qualifying session. And it looks like maybe, just maybe here, Sam, that our 5 drivers are already determined. It looks like the 5 of Eric Schaefer may not even be in the server anymore.
Well, Schaefer's not here, but there's still only 4 positions. They're going to be not coming out of the 5 cars that are on track at the moment. So someone's not making it in out of these 5 cars. And now you got to wonder, Benjamin Staple, he came into this race as a debut driver. He's going to get his first experience here in this heat race of drivers that have had experience all season long. How is this 0-21 machine going to go? Remember, top 4 make it into the featured race. one of these drivers is not going to be racing anymore and gets to go home early.
Riding on board with Jeff Green. He's going to be riding shotgun here when they take the green flag. And, you know, Sam, we've done other leagues and we've seen heat races prior to the main event. And the question that keeps kind of swirling around, these drivers that transfer into the main event later on here tonight, does going out here, being able to race around some drivers for this 10-lap segment, give them a little bit of an added advantage when we go green for the main event race?
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a feel what the track's going to be like due to the fact that it's nighttime for these drivers. As pace car is off, the track temp's exactly the same as qualifying. You got your a little bit of an advantage there, but Jeff Green through the middle, 3 wide action right off the bat. And that 2 machine wants to get up front quickly.
Jeff Green's not going to wait. He gets up to 3rd. He'll now try and take 2nd from Seth Harrelson as Tyler Riggs straddles that seam there between the inside and the middle line. He's going to lead them off of 2. Green in 2nd, and Harrelson with some connection problems back there in 3rd, just hoping that his connection's going to hold on here for 10 laps.
DiMarzio going to be in 4th place and Staple back in 5th. Staple needs to stay close, but he's going to loop it around, and that's 021, and it's not looking good for the driver who's trying to get into the featured race, because now everyone up front, they just need to run clean, and they're going to be making it in.
Keeps it straight, keeps it back on the racing surface, and now he has to hope someone up ahead of him other. Just run single file, tiptoe through the corners if you have to, because you're all in transfer spots.
Yeah, the only thing you're really battling for is the best position of the last 4 positions, and it's more of the fact of, as long as you make it into the featured race, you have a chance to battle up. We saw Kyle Johnson last week. He started all the way back practically in last place and almost won the thing. So qualifying now, it's all about the fact, just make sure you're the 4 cars that make it into the next round.
But if you think about the 2 short tracks we've been to, and you go back to that Kyle Johnson situation, back at Richmond, he just had a strong car and cut his way through the field. At Bristol was more so of him capitalizing on drivers' mistakes. And just what we're seeing right here with this 3rd place battle between Seth Harrelson and AJ DiMarzio, I would hazard a guess that it's going to be a lot more difficult to pass a driver here at Las Vegas than it has been at the 2 short tracks in the last 2 weeks.
Jeff Green inside of Tyler Riggs, and now going to be setting himself up here for a pass, still side by side for the lead. This is exactly what we were talking about that we don't really want to see for these drivers. It's 10 laps. You still got a lot of drivers that are, I mean, right now, if you make a mistake, that 021 car might be 7 seconds back, but he's still in striking distance if you make a mistake and wreck yourself out.
And they're still side by side. Green has not cleared Riggs for the top position yet. Now has him cleared through the center of 1 and 2. So move last week's winner to the top of the board. Riggs will slot in 2nd. Harrelson got the wall there off of turn 2.
Yeah, and right back to battling is Tyler Riggs, ducking it under the 2 machine. And you got to be careful. We've already seen drivers getting a little bit slick, sliding a little bit here during qualifying, and even here during the race for Staples. So this track is slick for these drivers, even with extreme cool weather that we're seeing.
Now, obviously right now, Tyler Riggs, I would assume, is kind of testing the waters of what the car feels like being in the dirty air of another car, seeing what kind of runs he can get. So a little bit of experimentation going on right now, but you got to make sure you don't experiment too much and end up making a mistake that could cost you a chance of even being in the main event race.
If anything, these drivers are getting the experience of what is the tire wear going to be like for these first 10 laps. How aggressive can I attack these first couple of laps? How much do I need to be thinking about saving the longer the run goes on? These are the little factors that you can get tidbits from in this heat race for our top 4 right now.
And see, that's actually a really good point, because all these drivers are going to be starting at the rear of the field regardless of where they finish in this heat for these top 4. So, you know, if there is not a whole lot of wear, then they can be of the mentality, all right, I've got a strong enough car, I can fight my way up there to the front. But if it does wear down the tires, we know that Las Vegas is one of those type of tracks where pit strategy can come into play, long green flag runs can come into play. So these drivers get a little bit of an idea of how can I preserve these good years, and might have that little bit of an added advantage over the rest of their competition.
Yeah, I'm looking at the way that the tires are looking based off of the lap times that the drivers have been putting down. They're off by about a 10th or so compared to what their best lap time was for most of these drivers that are running. So Already 8 laps in, you're starting to see a little bit of wear, but not a lot. Maybe we were expecting from what some other racetracks would have been.
Top four all spread out. You can see them here from the back bumper of Jeff Green's number 2. There's Riggs, Harrelson, and DeMarzo just now exiting out of turn number 2. 13 seconds back is Benjamin Staples, who unless something drastically changes here in these final 5 corners, he will not be taking part in the main event race here tonight in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and it's not the way that you really want this race to go. White flag in the air for this heat race, and Benjamin Staple was hoping to make it for the 100-lap featured race, but an early slip up costing him greatly, and already going to be packing up his bags. But as I'm saying that, you never know. We still got a corner to go for most of these drivers, and a slip up is looming, it looks like, based on how loose we were seeing Riggs and Green there for a second.
Well, last week, Jeff Green crossed the line to take the checkered flag for the win at Bristol. He'll take a checkered flag here tonight at Las Vegas, but it's only a checkered flag to lock him into the main show, as it looks like he's going to be starting this race from the, I believe,
27th position.
Yes, 27th position. Riggs will be 28th with Harrelson and DeMarzo in 29th and 30th. Benjamin Staples, tough break there, trying to make his first start of the season, but going to come up just short. And you got to think he's going to be going back to the qualifying session of, if I had just at least kept the car underneath me, even if it had been a somewhat slower lap time, he may not have been in that position having to try and qualify his way in the LCQ.
Well, it's the featured race here for the Juicebox Podcast G-Force ARCA Series for the Belly Up 100 here at Las Vegas. Seth, it's going to be a wild one for sure. We've already seen a lot of drama just based off of qualifying. Gerald Campbell top of the board with Rocky Boyd. And then all the way to the back, you got Jeff Green and Tyler Riggs. I mean, we know that up front it's going to be wild just because you got Rocky Boyd up front with Campbell and also Kyle Johnson having a great qualifying run in 4th. Then you got to watch Jeff Green and Tyler Riggs. How well are they going to be climbing up through this field now that we know that they've got some very fast cars? Just qualifying wasn't the way they wanted to go.
You know, it's going to be interesting, too, because if we go back to last week at Bristol, everybody was migrated up to that outside line. Drivers would have to try and drive it deep into the inside line to try and make passes, and sometimes they were successful, sometimes they had to kind of fall back in line and try again. Basically, here, for what we saw in qualifying, everybody wants to run that middle groove through the corner. Now, we know that there's about 3 or 4 lanes these drivers can utilize through 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Do we see a lot of multi-groove racing here, or do we see everybody, for the most part, try and fight for that same lane?
I think on these fresher tires, multiple groove racing is something to watch out for. Rocky Boyd missed out on the grid. He's going to be starting on pit road for the start of this race.
Oh, man, he was scheduled to start on the outside of the front row, so subsequently now, Gerald Campbell's going to look to driver's right and see Kyle Johnson starting on the outside of the front row here.
That whole entire outside row gets to move up a position for themselves. So a little bit of a shakeup so far for our top drivers. And this is disastrous for Rocky Boyd, who, like we said, missed last week on a suspension, comes back here in Las Vegas, almost got the pole, but was away from his computer when it was time to grid up and missed out on gridding. Now going to have to start on pit road for the 77 machine.
The only driver in the field, I would wager, that would love to see an early caution here in the first 5 laps of this race, as Gerald Campbell looking to go 2 for 2 in mile-and-a-half starts here in the G-Force Grand National Series, as he's going to lead us down to the start-finish line. And as that DuPont Chevrolet draws closer to the line, we are green flag racing in the Belly Up Sports 100.
And right now, Gerald Campbell getting a great launch on the inside, and still side by side, Kyle Johnson on the outside. How well is this 88 car going to do? Because now he's not having to worry about battling through the pack, but he's already seen that inside line, the much preferred lane to be in, as Campbell is just taking off with over a 2-car length gap over the rest of the field. Dallas Moynihan getting a little bit out of shape back in the middle of the field.
Now we had a 3-wide look there. Blaine Atkin was going
after Kyle Johnson in 57.
Johnson!
That early caution.
He saved it. He saved it. I think he saved it. He did. Holy cow.
I don't know how. Moynihan also had to back off because he almost ran into the 88. More cars on the back half slowing down here. but that looked like it was the 57 that got into the 88, just driving it so hard in. And now we're starting to see a lot of cars brushing up on the outside wall. They're pushing very aggressive at the moment, trying to move up as fast as possible.
Caden Thur was one of those up towards the front that got the wall there off of turn 2. Up ahead of him, you got a battle going on just inside the top 5. Hank Steinmiller, Jake Houndshow, Blaine Atkin joining this. We know Blaine Atkin is always on go when it's these restarts, and look at this, the Houndshells slicing and dicing there on the top side of the front straightaway. Here comes Jason on the outside line. The Houndshells working together in that third group, and they're going to make it work.
3-wide action for third place as Hank Steinmiller, Blaine Atkin, and also Houndshell pushing their way through. And also here comes the newcomer of Joshua Personette. Campbell looks like, though, he is doing the same strategy that he's been doing all season long at these mile and a halves. Back off, save its tires, let everyone else be as aggressive as they want. The Houndshells 1-2 side by side for the lead.
Well, Jake was able to out-qualify brother Jason, but Jason is the first Houndshell to lead a lap here tonight at Las Vegas, as right now they are first and second. Blaine Atkin right behind them in third. Fourth Personette, fifth Campbell. Then your best battle up inside the top 5. That is where you've got, I believe that is Hank Steinmiller and Caden Thur battling it out.
Something ridiculous to look at. We talked about how Jeff Green started all the way back in the 27th position. He's moved up to 15th.
Got an issue here for the 5 of AJ DeMarzo. He's coming to pit road. I don't know if he spun or not. No caution, however, so undoubtedly an unscheduled pit stop for that 5 machine is, man, from Campbell on back, they are wadded up.
Yeah, they are. That Campbell right now is just, he's trying to save his tires, but it's hurting the rest of the field in a way. I don't know if maybe that this 25 machine has an issue or if he's just thinking long term, but he is really slow compared to the rest of the field. And you're just seeing our top 5 just pull away further and further from the rest of the field. Also, other cars that have had issues. Ernest King in the 24 car, he's had some issues so far, as well as the 7 in McLaren. He's fallen off. And for Harrelson, he's on the back half of the field, still trying to figure out how to move up forward.
We want to talk about the hard charger of the race, Jeff Green, who won the LCQ race just moments ago, started 27th. In just a matter of 6 laps, he's up 12 spots to the 15th position.
Tyler Riggs has also moved up to 23rd position. But yeah, Jeff Green, biggest mover, but he's stuck on the inside where Campbell is having issues. Harrelson's going to move up, and others, oh my goodness, coking into Jeff Green as they're all scrambling to figure out where to place themselves.
Boy, that was Owens, that was Coking that had to check up there. They were 3 wide, almost 4 wide, and that, I think, was a fact of Hank Steinmiller not realizing Gerald Campbell's in conservation mode right now. Ran right up onto the back bumper of the 25 through the center of the corner, had to evasively move up to the outside line, and everybody else, I think it was a reactionary that other drivers kind of checking up and moving around, nearly leading to a wreck there.
Yeah, and another car that had to really get out of the way there was going to be John Weitendorf, who had to go almost to the inside wall to avoid cars, and right now running back in 18th position as cars continue to be trying to make charges forward. That's the one thing with a driver compared to everyone else that's just saying, I got to go, compared to Campbell that is in conservation mode and just saving as much as he can until about probably 15 laps to 20 laps into this run.
Different drivers with different agendas, as right now 3 wide. That's Anthony Guarneri stuck in the middle, Green on the bottom, Joseph Causey on the top side. Green just took a 2-for-1, and further up, great battling inside the top 10. Shane Lake, Christopher Morse Jr., James Roth in this mix, along with Joshua Personette and Caden Thur.
Yeah, Thor going to be trying to hold off Roth and Personette and doing his best at the moment. The issue is with Thor trying to defend this position. He's losing touch to our top 3 that continue to pull away of Houndshell, and Atkin.
And it looks like now we're starting to see, as the tires start warming up, that outside line is more the preferred way to go. Shane Lake way down there, low entry into turn 3. Not sure if he was trying to get out of the way of Bo Brady and Jordan Owens, but he's going to lose a couple of spots. As further up, though, it is still the Houndshells, but now they have been split up. Blaine Atkin all over the back bumper of Jake Houndshell, looking for the race lead.
Yeah, and the question of Gerald Campbell, because he's done this before. It backfired at Richmond because Blaine Atkin figured you could go as hard as you want and the tire drop off isn't worth saving for, and he was able to just pull away and really outclass the field. But the last time we were at a mile and a half at Richmond, there was a completely different story of Atkin pulling away for the first about 10 laps and then got ran down by Gerald Campbell, who was just in safe mode. This is a completely different Gerald Campbell, though. He has been saving so much. He just went from first all the way back to 16th place because of how much he's been trying to save.
Certainly thinking long run here, as we've had a couple of near misses for a possible early yellow flag. Looking here at the battle for the 7th position, Christopher Morris Jr., Joshua Personette, Bo Brady pushes up, makes a little contact with the left front of Hank Steinmiller.
Yeah, Steinmiller was not expecting Brady to come up, and I don't think Brady thought this Steinmiller was there. Maybe thought they were clear between themselves, but they just were not. And Owen's now going to be splitting them, and we're starting to see drivers. Both lanes are working, but how well can you get your momentum off the corner? The outside line looks like it's much more preferred on the straightaways, but through the corners, the middle and bottom groove, much better to beat.
Now another driver that started up at the front was going to roll off from 4th, but because Rocky Boyd missed the start, starting the outside of the front row is Kyle Johnson. This is completely different from what we've seen out of Johnson the last couple of weeks, where it was start at the back and charge to the front. This time he started at the front. He's kind of fallen to mid-pack, currently scored 18th.
Yeah, he fallen to actually even further than mid-pack. I think he was all the way back in at least 22nd position and has made his charge up to 17th at the moment. Kyle Johnson trying to make a charge forward, and he had a great qualifying run, but no, Cookie spun Campbell! And our first caution and more cars involved. Tyler Riggs and others.
That's the points leader that just got spun there. Gerald Campbell in the 25. Looks like Seth Harrelson might have gotten a piece of this wreck as well. There is Riggs all crunched up on the front of his Chevrolet. At least 4, 5, maybe 6 cars involved in this one, over in 3 and 4.
Yeah, it looked like Campbell was trying to arc his way into the corner, and Koki put his nose under the 25 machine, and that's what caused that incident to happen. But an explosion coming in with Tyler Riggs, nowhere to go into the 19 machine. And the car that was lucky to slow down was actually the 7 of Jackson McLaren, who somehow was able to slow down in 20th position and almost ran into the 19 machine.
Oh, wow, that's a hard shot there for Tyler Riggs. It looks like maybe the 85 might have gotten a piece of it too, of James Goshen making his debut here tonight. So pretty extensive damage for a number of these drivers. And again, as we know, these drivers do not have a fast repair, and so that's a lot of damage sustained, especially on that 26, to have to ride out these final 80 or so some laps.
Yeah, I re-looked at the contact. Goshen got a little bit of a scrapes on the middle of body part, middle of side scrapes of the 85 machine, but looked like there's no front end damage for this 85, so he should be good to keep on running.
You're looking at the different camera angles here. It's just so tough to tell. Kind of looks like that case of two drivers wanting the same piece of real estate. Randy Koking looked like he was holding his line. Gerald Campbell was arcing it into the corner, and we see this so often at these wide entries into these mile-and-a-half speedways of two drivers, two different styles of going into the corner, and sometimes those cars just in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, and it's just the save mode, right, for Campbell. And like we've said, Campbell was probably the only driver that was really in save mode. Or maybe he was just something was off with his machine. I don't know what was so different. But Campbell was about 2/10 slower than the rest of the field at times, and kind of put himself in an awkward position being back in the back half of the field where neither drivers have really been around one another for most of the season.
Well, the Hound Shells decide to come down pit road along with James Roth, Joseph Causey, Dallas Myhan, Bo Brady, and a couple of others. So Blaine Atkin is now the race leader. Caden Thur will restart second, followed by Chris Morris Jr., Jordan Owens, and Joshua Personette. So we had some takers and we had some leavers, which is going to make it interesting for some of these drivers back there that may have taken on either maybe just 2 tires or maybe taken on 4 tires in their attempt to charge up through the field.
Yeah, I'm looking at drivers that might be thinking about getting some tires. It looks like Kyle Johnson, one of the drivers that did go for 4 tires, and I believe also Bo Brady went for 4 tires as well. So both those drivers trying to go for an advantage over the rest of the field. that are just going for fuel only.
So we'll see here in the early stages of the race how that's going to play out as we get closer to the end of tonight's event. Blaine Atkin looking to become the first repeat winner on the season, winning back at Richmond. I believe at all of our previous winners, with the exception of our Nashville winner, Jacob Putman, in the field here tonight. So Campbell, Green, and Atkin looking to see if they can be the first repeat winner on the season. Obviously, there's a number of other drivers here tonight. They'd love to have their first Grand National Series win.
Yeah, there's a lot of drivers that really want their first win for sure. And, getting a win in the Grand National Series, it's a 12-round season for these drivers. There's no playoffs. It's just race, and whoever has the best season gets the championship. So for a lot of these drivers that are in the middle of the field, a win is kind of needed. If anything, most of them will need multiple wins to have a chance as cars are stacking up. Pace car lights are off. We're going this time by.
Go back and talk about Gerald Campbell here. I mean, it didn't look like he got nearly as much damage as he possibly could have in that wreck. We kind of attribute to him dropping to the back of him being in conservation mode, but now being involved in that incident, does that change up his strategy here for the rest of this race?
I think that at this moment, with the slide, it's going to hurt his tires that he was trying to save, but it might have equaled out at this point. It might be just better for Gerald Campbell just to push as hard as he can, get through the field, and get up with the drivers where he might feel a little bit more comfortable with instead of the drivers that are in the back half of the field. But this is going to be interesting because some of those drivers that were running back in 25th, 26th position, they did not come into the pits for some of them. They're going to be starting up in the top 15, where these drivers that just pitted, they're going to have to drive through all that traffic.
It's also going to be interesting to watch if Campbell is up to speed. He's going to restart in 20th. The driver that's trying to take the points lead away from him, John Whitendorf, going to be restarting in the 10th position. So we'll keep an eye on the battle between the 33 and the 25 as we're getting ready to go back green for our first restart of the night on lap 19. Blaine Atkin, along with Caden Thur, going to lead us down here and get us back underway here tonight at Las Vegas.
As green flag out in the air, Blaine Atkin, we know is going to just try to take off, but looking at the drivers that are up front in their top 10, Christopher Moritz Jr. is the driver I got my eye on to see how well can he stay with the 0-5, because he's been slowly chipping his way through the field. How well can he continue on? As drivers in the back half of the field, they're scattering as drivers had issues. It looked like Dallas Myhan had some issues, as others as well.
Yeah, Gerald Campbell's going to go up the middle 3 wide with James Roth. Now going to go to the inside of Ernest King. Joseph Causey back there as well in the 8. Kyle Johnson in the 88. Up ahead of them, you've got Jake Hounshell, who was on pit road. He's now trying to work his way back up into the top 10, looking for 13th on James Goshen.
Yeah, in the first car with fresher tires is going to be Kyle Johnson back in 19th position, kind of being swamped and not really able to make passes just yet, as he's just able to get on the high side of Roth, and he's probably going to have to make that high side line work. Other car that's coming, Rocky Boyd back in 21st position. He's trying to make his charge up front.
Yeah, remember he missed the start, but when he came off pit road, he was still on the lead lap. That caution came out. He bunched back up with everybody else, and now we'll try and make forward progress as Jeff Green drives it deep into turns 1 and 2, takes the 4th position away from Caden Thur. Thur drops back to 5th, leaving a side-by-side battle for 6th between Joshua Personette and Hank Steinmiller.
As we're seeing all these battles throughout the field, just got to report Blaine Atkin, just reported to the whole entire field, hey, I'm in save mode. I'm saving my tires at the moment, so I'm not trying to pull away. If you catch up to me, you can try to pass me, but I'm not pushing it too hard right now.
Blaine Atkin and save mode. Not sure I'm used to those two words being in the same sentence, but how in the world do you save when you're out in front?
I mean, like you're seeing right now, he's keeping himself within striking distance for the cars around him, but really not having anyone challenge as they're going 3 wide in the back half of the field, as it's Kyle Johnson, Gerald Campbell, and also Goshen that are having battles here. It's Kyle Johnson muscling his way past Campbell.
Yeah, nearly some contact between the 88 and the 25 coming out of turn 4. They settle it out as Johnson tucks in line behind Jake Hounshell. Further back behind them, you've got some wild racing. Rocky Boyd, Anthony Guarneri trying to fight their way back up to the front. They're bringing the 20 of Bo Brady along with them there as we're going to go 3 wide down the back straightaway. Brady sticks Guarneri in the middle.
Yeah, Bo Brady trying everything he can here. Oh boy. Had to back out of there was Granary and almost drifted up into the 77 machine as these drivers are continuing to push back and forth. Rocky Boy did not take tires, came in, just took fuel on that last restart. So, you got the mixture of drivers of how well did they save their tires during that first green flag run that we had. And it was fuel just enough. Right now, Kyle Johnson showing 4 tires is a great thing to have, but I think the rest of the field is thinking, let's save an extra set just in case we have a caution with about 30 laps to go.
And that's why we saw Bo Brady did not back out of that three-wide situation, because he had the 4 fresh tires underneath him, knowing that he'd have a little bit more grip to be able to run that inside line going into turn 3. As now Jeff Green looks to the inside of Jordan Owens for the 3rd spot. Owens actually seems pretty dedicated to that second groove, and he's been making some pretty good headway off the corners of 2 and 4, getting some good speed down these straightaways.
Into the wall is Owens, though, as he comes a little bit too high, trying to get the arc just right, and the wall just sticks out, and that's going to hurt the 22. Horrendous little bit of damage he's got to deal with now on that front right side of that 22 machine.
Yeah, as you said, the safer barrier just juts out there when you go into turn 3, and he got it pretty good right behind that left front tire. We'll see if we can get a look at it as he comes around here through turn 2. You can see the right side damage, and boy, at a track that is so aerodynamically dependent like Las Vegas, that's going to hurt, especially the longer the run goes on.
Yeah, it's really going to hurt as the longer the run goes on for sure, because now you're going to be seeing the car just reacting so much differently than it was previously. It was already kind of too loose on the start of these runs, and now you're seeing cars really dealing with it. Back in 6th place, though, Kyle Johnson able to go 3 wide by Steinmiller and Thorne, and able to make that pass as the 88 machine already up to 5th place with those fresher tires.
Yeah, you got those fresh tires. You feel like Superman. You feel like you can't do anything wrong. That's the second driver. Brady was the first with the fresh tires that would not back out of the 3-wide situation, leaving Hank Steinmiller and Caden Thor to have to decide who's the one that's going to back out and put it back to double wide going into turn 1. It's like Caden Thor was the driver that had to lift, and he lost a 3 spots because of that, dropping behind Personette and Tom Bourne, now back to the 9th spot.
Yeah, Tom Bourne in that Monster Energy machine trying to find his way forward as Bo Brady behind him. Another car with fresh tires. Only 2 drivers decided to go with 4 tires on this first pit stop. That was Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson, as they are both moving up, both of them in the top 10 now.
Looking at the lap times, Gerald Campbell looks like his car is still up to speed, and he's just ahead of the guy that's trying to reel him in for the points lead, John Whitendorf. Right now, those two running 11th and 12th currently. And not really any terrible visible damage on that 25 car. So Gerald Campbell, despite being involved in the first and only caution up to this point, definitely seems like he dodged a bullet early on.
Yeah, it really does look like he did. Drivers, I'm surprised on how much further back they are. That's got to be Jason Houndshell. This is shocking to see, back in 27th position for the 00 machine that qualified up in 3rd place, which is shocking to see how far back he is. I don't think he's in save mode. It's just looking like he's that far off the pace.
And Dallas Myhan back here as well, 3rd in the standings, and currently scored in the 25th position. He was not involved in that wreck either, so a couple of drivers that we saw up inside of the top 10 the early stages of this race, all of a sudden running back outside of the top 20.
4 fresh tires up to the front. Kyle Johnson able to make the pass on Blaine Atkin, and now we're seeing the 88 machine. He might have had issues there on the first couple of corners of our first couple of laps, but he is now up front leading the charge.
So that has worked out to his favor. The problem is, though, he has one less set of tires to work with than everybody else in the field. And right now, field pretty well spread out. Single file for the most part, couple of side-by-side battles here and there. So we are settling back into long green flag run mode here at Las Vegas, as here comes the 4 fresh tires of Bo Brady as well. Those 2 drivers restarted outside of the top 20. Right now, Johnson's in the lead. Brady's just cracked the podium.
Yeah, and right now, Bo Brady, he's still in striking distance, within a second of Kyle Johnson. And now it's the question, who used up their tires more cutting their way through traffic between those 2 machines? Because we know they're going to be the 2. They're going to be 1-2 unless a caution comes out, just because of how important tires are being right now. As you're seeing on screen, 4 fresh tires just make you run so much faster. But Blaine Atkins doing a great job holding off the 20 at the moment.
Had a great battle going on back here for the 14th position. Joseph Causey trying to hold off the debuting Jackson McLaren. Having a solid outing as Jackson as they continue the side-by-side battle. Ahead of them, it's another side-by-side battle. Jordan Owens looking to the inside of Caden Thor. Jake Hounshell in the mix of this as well. This is just inside of the top 10.
And right now, these drivers continue to keep on battling back and forth. Hounshell and Owens, who we saw up in 4th place at one moment, that damage is caught up to the 22 machine as he's just slowly drifting further and further back.
O'Brady now into the 2nd spot, currently 1.2 seconds behind Kyle Johnson. Now half a second from Brady back to Blaine Akin. The best battle continues to be just in the latter half of the top 10. That's where Tom Bourne now starts to close in on Joshua Personette. And boy, an evasive move back there by John Whitendorf, heeling to the inside of Jordan Owens down the back straightaway.
Oh boy, wow. Jake Hounshell in the 57 did make contact coming out of 4, and somehow they didn't wreck one another, but that was a very scary situation that's given a lot of space to Whitendorf. And here comes Causey as well, and also here comes the 7 McLaren, and McLaren hits the apron and drifts up a little bit.
Pushes up right in front of, I believe that is Guarneri in the 16, so it wads them all up from about the 10th position back to just around 17th, where Peyton Hill runs.
And Peyton Hill has been dealing with a little bit of internet issues for this driver, but still trying to make some good moves, holding on in 17th position. But man, that was a very nerve-wracking situation. Up front, Bo Brady has passed Blaine Akin and is slowly starting to chip down and catch up to Kyle Johnson at the moment.
We've had some near misses here tonight. Only one caution has flown so far, but we've had about maybe 3 or 4 cautions that have not happened. These drivers have done a great job of keeping it together and keeping the long green flag run going, as right now we are currently into the 21st lap completed of this run. Campbell continues to try and charge to the front. He's looking for the 8th position off of Tom Bourne, and he will take it. As up at the front, things for the most part currently somewhat spread out. Kyle Johnson by about 8 car lengths back to Bo Brady, and that's another 15 car lengths before you get back to Blaine Akin. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break here. Pit stops may be looming for some of these drivers under green flag conditions. You won't miss a thing. We're going to go FRN side by side.
Since the VFW was founded, their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the veterans of foreign wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans. For more information on the VFW, go to ahctv.com/sacrifice.
Most everyone involved in sim racing always wants that edge or even make the experience a little bit better, or in this case, a little bit more in-depth. Enter iRacing iFlag. iFlag is a simulation signal box with software designed by Peter Vostro. When you are behind the wheel in iRacing, your eyes are looking down the track or maybe even in the rear or side view mirrors. You may not notice or even hear when the caution comes out, when your car is damaged, or if you get black flag, or even notice the car beside you. Yes, iFlag will point out the sides and tell you where that car is. It just makes iRacing more real and can help you become a better driver. We also offer iRacing iFlag Digital Pit Box. This small box is a great addition to any sim rig. With only 3.5 inches wide, it gives you all the information you need, including how many laps completed, how much fuel you will need to finish, what lap you need to pit on, laps to your fuel is empty, as well as weather and track conditions. It also switches when you come down pit road for more information, including what lap you're pitting under, tire wear, laps on tires, fuel average, and much, much more. To see more info, check us out today at iracingiflag.com.
We welcome you back here tonight for the Belly Up Sports 100 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, race number 5 of the G-Force Grand National Series. And earlier on, Sam, we saw Gerald Campbell in save mode. I think we can safely say he is in save mode no longer.
No, honestly, I think ever since he took the green after coming to the pits, making sure he's packed full of fuel, decided, hey, it's time to go. That whole entire 17 laps before that first caution came out and was involved in, it was save, save, save. And you're seeing here, I mean, Campbell has moved up back from about 20th position up to 7th, past green for a second as they continue to duke back and forth. Well, this 25 car has been saving his tires the best. Issue is Kyle Johnson, Bo Brady, they've just taken off from where they're at the moment. But the rest of the field, I think they might be thinking about pitting around the halfway marker, splitting this race in half and keeping an extra set just in case a late caution comes out.
Yeah, a number of these drivers here is actually Joshua Personette has brought his number 11 to pit road. He was running at the time around the 9th position, so one of our first drivers inside of the top 10 to make a green flag pit stop.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing a lot of drivers just trickling in from here, probably until around lap 55 for the drivers that have not pitted yet for fuel. The drivers that pitted for fuel, they're probably looking around lap 60 to 65 is their window, maybe even out to lap 70 if they feel comfortable enough for that. As they continue to battle hard for this 6th place position, Gerald Campbell, Jeff Green, Tom Bourne, they're all on top of one another and really not giving an inch.
Yeah, Tom Bourne at first, it was, yeah, you guys keep battling, I'll get up there. Now it's a case of, where do I go? Because the high line's blocked with Green, the inside line is blocked with Campbell.
Yeah, there's nowhere really to go except for maybe 3 wide. Gerald Campbell went so low on the apron, I think he might have grazed the grass. And you don't want to be touching the grass at all here at Las Vegas. That is extremely low. You got to be careful down there. Bo, now it looks like Rocky Boyd now going to be coming into the pits here. One of the drivers in the back half is Tom Bourne pushing Jeff Green, moving past Gerald Campbell and ducking it low below the 2 machine.
You talked about how low on the front straightaway Gerald Campbell was. I think that might have hurt his entry into turn 1 and subsequently his exit off of 2, but he challenges back to the top side here out of turn 4. For those that are seeing those little puffs of smoke here as we're focused on this 3-way battle for the 6th position, that's actually the 3 of Christopher Morris Jr. up in 4th place. Been blinking a little bit here and there, but right now still holding down a spot in the top 5.
Now these drivers that are battling side by side of Tom Bourne, Jeff Green, and Gerald Campbell, they're all on those 48-lap old tires. You're really got to be careful with these older tires because moves you might have been able to do with 15-lap old tires, your car might slip up just by a simple mistake.
We saw the handling problems drivers had to deal with in qualifying. Now they're close proximity racing with each other here at speeds of over 170 miles per hour. So definitely no room for error as Bourne on the bottom, Green a little bit higher, and Campbell thought about shooting the gap up the middle. Now he's going to drive to the inside, and as these guys are battling, all of a sudden, look at this, Joseph Causey, Jake Hounshow, John Whitendorf, what was a 3-car battle could turn into as much of a 7-car battle here.
Yeah, our 3 cars right here that have been battling for the past about 5 laps, they're running about 3 to about 4/10 slower than what the cars behind them are running. And it's really hurting them so far because they continue to lose even on the top 5 machines as this gap of Green is about 2.1 seconds away. And like I said, what could be a 3-car battle, it's now a 5, about to be a 6, and maybe even a 7-car battle soon.
Yeah, Caden Thor back there waiting in the wings, seeing what happens with these 6 cars up ahead of him. We just saw the 7 of Jackson McLaren coming down pit road for his scheduled pit stop. And yeah, for most of these drivers now, if you come to pit road, you're good to make it on fuel the rest of the way. Look at Joseph Causey way down there nearly to the grass on the front stretch.
3 wide into turn number 1. Causey's still there under Campbell, and Campbell's not really giving it an inch. These guys are teammates, but still racing hard against one another.
And that's risky if you're Gerald Campbell, because remember when he kind of had that same entry into the corner earlier, he went around off the nose of Randy Coking. So testing the waters there, as I saw another car back there of Seth Harrelson dart to the left. I don't know if he got the wall or if he was trying to avoid the 84 of Peyton Hill off the second corner.
Yeah, it looked like he might have gotten into the wall, and now you're starting to see cars. Whenever you see someone going on the apron, it's always that they can go down there, try to make a move, but they have to come up at some point. And do you want to be the stubborn driver that doesn't allow them and causes a wreck, or do you have to make room? And then if you make room, do the other cars around you know that you're about to make room?
In the middle of this is Jake Hounshell, a former points leader. You've got Gerald Campbell, the current points leader. Second in the stage, John Whitendorf. Last week's winner, Jeff Green. I mean, Sam, if a wreck takes place right here, could have huge points implications.
And this is all 6 back to 12th place that we're seeing this battling. And soon to be, we're about to see cars that are a lap down. First car 1 lap down. Here comes Joseph. Oh my goodness. Personet's coming through. I mean, Joshua Personet. And right now, Personet is about to cruise through this group of cars. But due to the fact they're side by side, where the heck does this 11 car go?
Personet is running lap times about 2 to 2.5 seconds faster than these other drivers. That's just the difference between those fresh tires to the old tires. Some of these drivers been out there for about 40 laps in their tires. Some of these guys been out there since the drop of the green flag on the set of Goodyears they had to start this race.
And I think that was the cleanest you could have asked for Personet to try to get past all those drivers, but continuously just really pinching that inside line is going to be Campbell. And there's always that advantage of trying to slow up the cars on the inside, but there's that huge disadvantage of if you pinch too hard, you could find that car drifting up into you and taking out both machines.
We just had a car come to pit road, Randy Coking in the 19, and he's actually been on pit road now for the past 3 laps. A long stay for him. I would assume that if not to repair some of the damage maybe sustained from the earlier wreck, maybe have been another driver that got up there, maybe pounded the wall off of turn 2.
Also, Ernest King just came into the pits for that 24 machine as he was running around the 16th position. So cars making some changes here. And speaking of changes, the 3 car and others coming into the pits. There's a long chain of machines coming to the pit road.
Saw Jeff Green awfully low there on the back straightaway. Thought he might be a driver pitting. Indeed, he is. Shane Lake, Christopher Morse Jr. is Ernest King coming off of pit road. Also the 85 of James Goshen on pit lane this time.
So this is around that halfway marker that we were talking about, around 55 laps, 50 to 55. And expect about 10 to maybe even 6 laps, 10 to 16 laps, excuse me. That's when we'll be seeing those drivers that pitted on the first caution we had. So it's going to be interesting to see as Blaine Atkin into the pits now.
Blaine Atkin coming to pit road from the 3rd position. And I mean, this is critical here, Sam, because I mean, if you end up getting a speeding penalty here, you're going to lose a lap. And there's a number of drivers that already have been put a lap down. So it could all really depend if there's no caution that comes out for the remainder of this race. This could be the make it or break it point for a number of our top contenders.
And also you got to look at Kyle Johnson, Bo Brady. When they come into the pits, this is going to be, I believe, their last set to work with for this teams, for both those drivers. So they got to be thinking, hey, we're hoping that a late caution comes out so everyone's on equal playing field. But for those drivers that came in for fuel, they can outrun a lot longer than those other drivers, which is going to keep a lot of our contenders 1 lap down for way longer than they want to be. And they have to fly around this track to hope to unlap themselves. And by that point, they might have already used up all their tires.
Tyler Riggs brings his wounded 26 to pit road. Jonathan Leach in the 48 has also hit pit lane. And now Hank Steinmiller is going to pit from 3rd.
And Steinmiller coming in and looking at others that are thinking about coming in as well. Causey's coming in as well. And just continuing to see as drivers pull into the pits. We're just keeping our eyes out. Top 13 still need to come into the pits.
We're especially waiting on Whitendorf, Bourne, Thur, and Hill. Those drivers going to be having to pit momentarily. Here comes Jake Hounshell on the pit road in the 0-2.
And Jake Hounshell was one of those drivers that pitted during the green white during that last caution just for fuel. So interesting to see how these drivers are going to be reacting here with the fact that now, with the drivers that have the freshest tires of Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson, they've been just running out there on cruise control, and Personette is trying to unlap himself. He's close to doing so. Also, got to keep your eye out on Ernest King. Can he unlap himself? As right now, he's 3 laps down with being involved in some instances earlier on in this race.
Saw Jordan Owens in the 22 coming down behind Jay Counshaw. You have to wonder how much time they're going to spend trying to repair the right side of his machine after getting into that safer barrier jut out in the entrance of turn 3 way back in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, these drivers continuing on. They're wrecking, though, as a caution is going to be thrown out, and it looks like it might have been the 81 that was involved.
Shane Lake on the back straightaway, looped the car around. It's hard to tell if anybody else might have been involved or not. Looks like he's made some pretty extensive contact with the left front of that AEW Chevrolet.
Tom Bourne was involved in this thing, but it looked like Lake just loops it in front of Blaine Atkin and Tom Bourne, and Bourne just an innocent bystander to the 81 looping it.
And what did we talk about with green flag pit stops? The possibility of an untimely caution. I mean, right now, everyone, with the exception of the top 12, all 1 lap down. Talk about a timely pass for Joshua Personette. He had just gotten around the race leader, Kyle Johnson, at the time to unlap himself.
Yeah, and Shane Lake was back in 28th position and was already multiple laps down. So that's just a nerve-wracking position for these drivers. And oh man, you just hate to see it for drivers that were running so well. I mean, Bourne was one of those drivers that was, I believe he was running slower than Lake, and Lake was really pushing himself to trying to figure out how to get by the 54 machine, and actually had to do evasive maneuvers that got himself into the situation he was in.
Yeah, Lake was on the fresher tires. He had been to pit road, and it's interesting there because you see him try and give room to Tom Bourne, and then when he checks up, he's got Blaine Atkin on his back bumper. It didn't look like there was any contact there, but I think that there was not only the pressure of making sure he didn't wreck the 54 that was to his inside, but at the same time, I think he might have been trying to get out of the way of the faster Blaine Atkin.
Yeah, I think really the better option in that scenario was probably to see Lake just back off on his acceleration, drift up, and just run that outside line, because you're on so much fresher tires than what Bourne was on that you easily can pass him on the outside, and you really don't need to be that close to that other machine when you're running and carrying so much more speed on those fresher tires.
See right there with the chopper cam, doesn't look like there was any contact or even any possibility of net code between the 81 and the 05. That was just a simple spin on his own by the 81 machine of Shane Lake. Brings out the caution here right in the middle of green flag pit stops, and it looks like Joshua Personette was able to stay out when everybody else that was on the lead lap came to pit road. So, boy, talk about a driver that couldn't have asked for better timing of this yellow flag.
Yeah, Personette's going to be coming in and getting the lead. The only issue is he's going to be on so much. He's going to be on 18-lap old tires, about to be 19-lap old tires compared to everyone else that just got fresh tires at this moment. And Personette's going to be now thinking of another caution possibly coming out. I think he's thinking another quick caution probably in the next about 15 laps or so that he can come in, get the freshest tires, while everyone else, I mean, Kyle Johnson, Bo Brady, they're out of sets. Everyone else, some of these drivers just took another set just so they had the same and equal tires compared to the rest of the field.
Looks like we had a total of, trying to count here, I think it was 10 drivers, 9 or 10 drivers that were able to take the wave around, with most of the leaders coming down pit lane. Blaine Atkin, Hank Steinmiller, Jackson McLaren, Jay Counshaw, Anthony Guarneri, Christopher Morse Jr., Joseph Causey, Peyton Hamlet, and Jonathan Leach. They're all going to be back on the lead lap, giving us 22 in total. Jordan Owens, Tyler Riggs, James Goshen, they're going to be trapped 1 lap down apiece. 2 laps down for Rocky Boyd and Ernest King. 4 down for Randy Koking. 5 down for Shane Lake. And 6 down for AJ DeMarzo. However, almost 65 laps into this race, and all 30 drivers that started this event still running.
Yeah, still running. And I think the biggest surprise is the fact that Tyler Riggs is still running and only one lap down after his car completely exploded after hitting into Randy Kokean, bringing out our first caution. So a lot of these machines still surprising to see that they are running here today.
Really surprising to see Seth Harlson still up here inside the top 5. He's nearly knocked down that turn 2 wall a couple of times here tonight, but still soldiering on. Peyton Hill, great run for him in that 84. And of course, a lot of these drivers up here running where they are because of the timing of that yellow and deciding to stay out. But a driver that we were kind of concerned about, actually 2 drivers we were somewhat concerned about that were running towards the back there, Sam, Jason Hounshell and Dallas Myhand. Obviously, they were in fuel conservation, tire conservation mode, tried to stretch as far as possible. That caution actually saved them because Jason's going to restart 8th, Dallas going to restart 11th.
Drivers, though, that had to take a waiver round that are now kind of in pretty precarious situations. Jeff Green, who's going to be on 10-lap old tires, and you also got Jackson McLaren going to be in 15-lap old tires on the lead lap, though. And then also you got Peyton Hamlet on 19-lap old tires. This isn't looking good for those drivers because we've already seen how fast and how different these drivers can cut through the field just by having about 20-lap fresher tires than the rest of the field.
Only working our second caution, though, Sam, and we're going back green with 35 to go. We know as the laps tick down, the aggressiveness kicks up as the green flag is back in the air here. Let's see what happens on this restart. We're looking 3 wide into turn 1.
Yeah, just like that. And the big thing is the fact that Personet's on those older tires, so it allows us to go 3 wide.
Oh,
there
no.
goes the 07 in front of others.
And that's going to be a horrible spot for a spin. Hank Steinmiller gets clipped.
Now it's
my
Myhand
hands
involved.
Atkins involved.
Oh, no. I believe Jake Hounshell was involved in this as well.
Christopher Morse Jr., his car stopped on the top side of turns 1 and 2. Guarneri got a piece of it as well in the 16, and I'm sure there were others.
Yeah, Jake Hounshell was trying his best to avoid all of that and just couldn't in the 02 machine.
Peyton Hill might have gotten a little bit of it, might have gotten through unscathed, but he was definitely in the vicinity of the wreck. Oh, man, that was right up inside of the top 5, starting with the 07 of Seth Harlson.
Oh, man. Peyton Hamlet just went flying through there, kind of like a Nick Radar type of a moment where he just didn't slow down. Even with seeing a lot of cars starting to spin, he just full sent it. And that hurts Jake Hounshell's back bumper as that just got ripped apart by the 10 machine.
Here it was going into turn 1, and it just kind of almost looked like Seth Harlson's car never stuck. That car just drifted from the inside up to the middle line right in front of Gerald Campbell. And there you see the 02 come flying in along with Anthony Guarneri into 07 of Harlson. Shane Lake getting a piece, Dallas Myhand also, and we're going to try and see if we can figure out what happened to the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. because we saw him stopped up on the top side, but I didn't exactly see there from that angle how he got involved in the wreck.
It looked like he just saw there was cars everywhere and just decided, I'm just going to stop. Instead of trying to evade him with cars moving everywhere, Christopher Morse Jr. decided to go with the safer route of, I'm just going to park my car here, wait for everyone to get out of the way, then I'll start moving forward.
Kind of pulling Dale Earnhardt Jr. from Talladega, if you will. A couple other drivers really slowing down there as well. Looked like Randy Kokean, James Goshen almost came nearly to a stop as well. A lot of drivers seeing the wreck up ahead of them, but that's such a difficult spot, as I was saying, right there going into turn 1 because you got cars that are drifting up back into the banking. You've got cars that are coming down, trying to get down to the apron to avoid the wreck. It's one of those areas where you've got to pick a line, hope that nobody's going to be in that line when you get to the wreck.
Yeah, race chatter between the drivers right now is a lot of, hey, what does my car look like? Did I take any damage from there? Is my front end, is my rear end, what's still standing on my car? And this is kind of what brings up some of those incidences where we saw Personet. He wasn't able to get the best launch. And some cars just, they were on older tires, got some wheel spin, also weren't able to stick, and carnage happening here after going green again. I'm going to step aside for a second set. I'll be back once we go green.
All right, so Bo Brady was actually the driver that took it 3 wide into turn 1 made it stick, cleared for the top spot. With the caution coming out, he'll be the one that leads us back to green here with what will be less than 30 laps to go. Personette lines up in second with Kyle Johnson in third. If you look at some of the drivers that were involved in this wreck, we mentioned top of the program. Will Las Vegas play its part into the point standings? Well, if you look at two of the drivers involved in that wreck, Dallas Myhant and Jake Hounshow, they came into this race third and fourth in points, within striking distance of taking that points lead. Myhant was 31 points back. Jake Hounshow was a total of 43 points back, and both of them now pretty extensive damage to their machines. Jake Hounshow, a lot of damage to the rear and right side of his 0-2. Saw the entire rear bumper ripped off of the 41 of Dallas Myhant. So we'll see if they're going to have enough speed to be able to continue on. The driver that very thankful for this caution coming out, going to get the free pass under this yellow, I believe, is going to be the 26 of Tyler Riggs. And Riggs, of course, had that early front-end damage all the way back on lap 17, so I'm certain that he wouldn't mind seeing a couple more yellows take place, see if he can pick up a couple more spots before the conclusion of tonight's event. We're waiting for those lights to go out atop the pace car. They should be going out this time, and indeed they will. Have to remember here, Joshua Personette still has a set of tires waiting for him. Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson, on the other hand, they are out there on their final set of tires. But I think Personette does not want to give up the track position to come down pit road and take on those fresh Goodyears. He'd be restarting all the way back outside of the top 20, as we currently have 23 cars currently on the lead lap. Let's give you a top 10 rundown here. Bo Brady the leader, Joshua Personette in second. Kyle Johnson lines up third, John Whitendorf in fourth, Gerald Campbell will be fifth, Jake Hounshow, the other Hounshow, Jason, is going to line up in sixth, seventh is Caden Thur, James Roth now up in eighth, Jeff Green is ninth, and Blaine Atkin is going to complete the top 10.
Yeah, these drivers going to be dealing with a lot, really. I mean, I think the big thing for Personette is thinking, hey, we're going to be, if I put myself in the back of the field, that same incident could have been me caught up in that wreck. I'd rather stay up here, let the drivers really use up their tires a lot more, and then possibly come in and get those fresher tires, so I have that advantage moving forward compared to the rest of the field. But we're going to have a single file restart here, Seth, changing things up for these drivers at the end.
Definitely is. We saw them double wide, making it 3 wide for the lead going into turn 1. We'll see what kind of moves we're going to have going to the first corner this time, as Bo Brady up in through the gears was able to control the restart, and he's going to have nearly a half-second gap between himself and this battle for second.
Yeah, this single file restart really jacked everyone pretty just split up from everyone else. We have little pockets of where drivers are at because it didn't look like everyone was lined up and ready to go once we went green.
Kyle Johnson still not able to clear Joshua Personette, but as those two were side by side, they caught up to the back bumper of the 20 of Bo Brady. You have to think the draft came into play there as, man, they're wadded up off of 4.
Brady got a little bit wiggled through the center of 3 and 4, and that's what hurt him, as Kyle Johnson's got to move him up the track so he can get back on and get a better entry here. And here goes Whitendorf as well as Campbell, and now everyone's on equal ground. How fast really is Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson, as these guys are racing hard.
Gerald Campbell nearly lost it there out of turn 2. That car was pointed down to the infield for a brief moment there. Gathers it back up, and here comes Jason Hounshow in that 00. He's about to make it a 6-man fight for the top spot.
Yeah, no, watch now. Here comes this 57, who's going to actually make it a 7-car battle, as well as we continue to see Kyle Johnson up front. But here comes John Whitendorf challenging Bo Brady for second place.
John Whitendorf, obviously first on his list, his checklist for the season is to go to victory lane, but he also wants to finish ahead of that 25, cut into his points lead. Right now, first and second in the points, running inside of the top 5 with Whitendorf in third, Campbell currently in fourth.
Yeah, as we're seeing our front 6 all on top of one another. Also, if you drop back to 8th place, that's where you're going to see Blaine Atkin, who was leading this race and had such a strong car. But now, after being involved in that accident and a little bit of contact, he's found himself dropped all the way back in 8th place. Also on the older tires compared to the rest of the field. And right now, you're seeing a lot of cars wadded up from 9th on back.
Yeah, Blaine Atkin kind of surprising there. He still has a set of tires available to him. He took the wave around under the last caution, which is why he's out there on older tires right now, but did not take the opportunity to come down pit road, as issues back here for the 84 of Peyton Hill through 3 and 4. Looks like he didn't spin, but might have had a near moment there in the final couple of corners.
Yeah, it's going to get a little bit more nerve-wracking for a lot of these drivers. And someone I'm watching out for, Christopher Morris Jr. in the 3 machine. He's on some fresher tires than the rest of the field. He's back in 15th place. The car, though, with the freshest tires, that looks like that is actually going to be Jackson McLaren in 13th.
Joseph Causey and Hank Steinmiller, they're battling with each other right now for the 11th spot. I believe they have 1 lap older tires than McLaren, so not much of a difference right there between the 863 and 7. So Causey right now might be the driver to watch, see if he can cut his way up through the top 10, but currently running about 3.3 seconds back from the race leader, Kyle Johnson.
You know, watching these cars battling for 3rd place, Jason Houndshell and also John Whitendorf, they're side by side as Jason not willing to back down. And really, you're starting to see the Houndshells, both of them have the same tendencies of wanting to be up front and racing hard. As Jake Houndshell, his race kind of went up in smoke, being involved in that giant wreck we had. And right now, we're starting to see Jason now taking the mantle and really pulling away and trying to be one of those cars that can challenge for a top 5 finish here, as now we got Gerald Campbell on the inside of himself.
We saw Kyle Johnson and Bo Brady using their fresh tires to work their way up to the front. Johnson, of course, got to the front of the field first. Bo Brady had to work his way through traffic a little bit longer, but then when the two of them got cleared, it looked like they were both on equal footing. Now it looks like maybe Bo Brady's just a tick faster than the 88, because he was about 3 car lengths back, has drafted right back up to the bumper of that 88 car out of turn 2.
Yeah, and we're starting to see the drivers on how they've been trying to save, and then they'll make a push, save, try to make a push, and they just keep on going back and forth. And now I think Campbell has recognized, I cannot go in save mode like I did on that first stint. It just didn't work out as planned. Kind of exactly like what we saw at Richmond, on the fact that trying to save tires seems like the smarter decision, but on track, it just doesn't always work out the same.
We got ourselves a wad from 9th place back to 13th. Causey, McLaren, Guarneri, Personette, and Steinmiller, as well as the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. Things now settle out a little bit there as they were double wide, a couple of rows deep, all nose to tail, bumper to bumper. Now it looks like they're going to all settle out here as Personette and those older tires continues to fall back, now to the 14th position.
And I'm continuing to watch this battle for the lead. Bo Brady, for a second, was side by side with Kyle Johnson, not able to make the pass just yet as they start to pass Jake Houndshell, who just got out of the pit road in that completely demolished 0-2 machine. But here comes Gerald Campbell. He's caught up to our front 2. He might be thinking about sticking his nose either on the high side or below, as it's side-by-side racing for the lead.
O'Brady got to the inside, the left rear quarter pail of Kyle Johnson. I think he's feeling the pressure of that 25 now, reeling the both of them in. He says, hey, Kyle, I got to go. I got to get ahead of this 25 car. They still remain side by side going into turn 1.
Yeah, and these drivers continue to stay side by side as Campbell, as well as Jason, waiting and lingering for their chances to make a pass here. But Gerald Campbell in that 25 car, he might be going 3 wide, and he's thinking about it. Going to third, into corner number 3. Gerald Campbell to the inside.
He is there. He is going to take the spot. Maybe contact. Johnson gets sent up into the wall. Caution is out as Tom Bourne is spun further back.
Tom Bourne bringing out this caution, and it looks like it was hit between himself and the 85 of believe that is not where you want to be seeing a wreck at all, as both those drivers were racing hard, and it might have been some net code coming out of too.
Boy, that was right at the same time as the contact between Brady and Johnson for the second. Well, actually, it was a 3-way battle for the lead at the time. Johnson, some pretty extensive right side damage there as he was up into the wall for a pretty good portion of 3 and 4. Drops him back to 6th position, but I guess the good news for him is with the caution coming out and the field being frozen with the timing of that yellow flag, he didn't lose any more positions.
Yeah, no, this wreck was so interesting to see because both the 54 and the 85 were racing so hard between one another. But Netcode kind of started the spin for Tom Bourne to get spun around, and then there was some contact to finish off the spin between those drivers.
And this is interesting, Sam, because this caution comes out with less than 20 laps to go. We've got some takers on pit road setting us up for maybe some very interesting hard charges to the front of the field in the closing stages.
Yeah, and really, this is a great advantage to see. We've already seen Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson. They've used up all their sets. They're out. They can't get any more tires, and they're stuck up front. And you've also got to have Jackson McLean, Christopher Morris Jr., and also James Roth with Jason Hounshell going to be coming off pit road first, back in 6th place for the first car with 4 fresh tires. Gerald Campbell in 7th place.
Top 6 deciding to stay out, which means that Campbell's going to have to cut his way through a little bit of traffic. But again, I think a thing that's going to play to his advantage is the fact that now the restarts are single file. If it was double file, he'd have basically 2 or 3 walls of side-by-side racing to have to deal with. Now he's going to be able to kind of pick them off one at a time.
Well, I'm wondering if we're actually going to stay single file restarts here. We're going to keep our eye out and see how they rack up for this restart here. But I think they went single file just because of how chaotic the last restart before that they went single file was. And so deciding, hey, let's just do a single file restart, get everyone cooled off for a second, and we'll get back to side-by-side restarts here and stacking everyone up.
So we're going to have to see how the old tires are versus the fresh tires. And I mean, if we use a case in point, going back to Joshua Personette in the middle of those green flag pit stops, we saw him just fly by other drivers. Now, I know that the difference was fresh tires to about 45 lap tires at that time, but I mean, we look at the situation of these top 5 that have stayed out. Bo Brady, Kyle Johnson, James Roth, 1st, 2nd, 5th, 21 laps on their tires. Jackson McLaren and Christopher Morris Jr., 16 laps on their tires. I mean, that's pretty significant wear on those Goodyears.
Yeah, I think honestly the better control to look at would be after our first caution when we had Bo Brady and Kyle Johnson, both of them driving through the field when the rest of the field was on about 17 lap older tires. So right now that's the better case for us to see. And the drivers, I'm looking, it actually was our top 5 that did not pit, as it looks like Jason Hounshell did go for, I believe, might have gone for 2 tires for himself here. But I mean, this is going to be interesting to see, as everyone from 9th on back did take 4 tires and are set for this restart. And the cars that are still on the lead lap is incredible to see. Tyler Riggs, Dallas Myhan, drivers that have been involved in multiple accidents, they're still on the lead lap, running back in 18th and 19th position.
I believe Seth Harrelson was the recipient of the free pass under this caution. So 23 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green. We do have one driver that has taken his machine to the garage, and that will be Shane Lake, finishing out the evening in the 30th position. But 29 drivers that started this race still going to be continuing on here in the closing stages, as we're going to be going back green with 15 laps to go. And Sam, if we look back at the finishes of the last couple of weeks, back at Richmond, we had cars slipping and sliding, wrecking all over the place on the final lap of that one. We had the 3-wide move by Jeff Green in the closing stages of last week at Bristol. There's a lot more room to maneuver here at Las Vegas. I think we're in for another exciting finish here tonight.
Yeah, and if anything, this is just another week of heartbreak for Bo Brady, who, if we stayed green, was set and poised to possibly make a pass on Kyle Johnson and maybe fight his way and go for a lead. But this is just heartbreak because they don't have fresh tires. They're sitting ducks for our top 5. They've got nowhere to go but to get past. And I think really what they're hoping for is some more wrecks and more carnage to come out of this thing. There is the set of one green-white checkered for these drivers if needed, if we need to go to overtime.
Well, they are back to double file restart. Bo Brady, of course, that control car, so he's going to have to hope he gets himself a pretty good jump. You've got the fresher tires of Jason Hounshell pinned up 3rd on the outside line, Campbell 4th on the inside lines, the green flag's in the air, and Kyle Johnson was ready.
James Roth did not get going, which clogged up Gerald Campbell. This is giving a lot of space to our front runners.
John Whitendorf had to go up to the 3rd lane there, trying to get around Caton Thur as well as Blaine Atkin. Atkin's going to use the inside line, just try and work his way up here to the front. So now the ball is in the court of the 0-0 of Jason Hounshell.
Jason Hounshell going to have those 2 fresher tires, but McLaren drifts up to the 3. Almost contact between our top 3.
Migrated from the bottom almost up into the 3rd groove where Christopher Morse Jr. was. Nice job by both of those drivers to give just enough room as Nearly into the back of Kyle Johnson was McLaren, and look at Houndshell. The fresh tires up in that second line. Big run out of 2.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Houndshell's coming with a lot of speed, but also Gerald Campbell. He just got up to Kazi, and now he's going to be making the pass for 6th place, and he's right on the back bumper in the back line of our top 5. They are in danger as this 25 machine is coming. He won back at Charlotte at our last mile and a half. He's trying to double down on the mile and a half wins.
Oh, Kyle Johnson squeezes Houndshell into the wall. There was contact between the outside safer bear and that 00. Houndshell's not going to be too pleased about that, as all of a sudden we got a car that's disappeared there. That's Jackson McLaren finally reappears on the back straightaway.
Yeah, McLaren's got to be careful there because he blinked, and it really caused the fact that Gerald Campbell couldn't make a move because McLaren was gone. He didn't know where the 7 car is. Now has made the pass, and now he can figure out how to make the passes here on the 4 drivers in front of him. But don't look now. Here comes Blaine Atkin with the fresher tires as well for the 05.
Yeah, but while these guys are all battling, let's bear in mind Bo Brady and Christopher Morse Jr. have kind of edged out a bit of a gap. Kyle Johnson's kind of playing
with Blaine Atkin, and they've started wrecking in the back.
On the back straight, Whitendorf was involved.
Oh, Leach.
Hard hit for the 48.
Also the 33 involved. He's got a lot of front end damage. And Blaine being so aggressive, trying to move up front. Looks like there was some contact between the 05 and the 8 machine.
But as you said, this might be a caution that Bo Brady would have wanted to see. He will, at least for the moment, still hold on to that top position, and the laps that he leads here under yellow are laps he does not have to defend the race lead, potentially the race win under the green flag conditions. So we're going to go back and take a look at this incident off of turn 2, and John Whitendorf ran a clean race all night long, was trying to see if he could cut into Gerald Campbell's points lead, but he just completely annihilated the front end of his car into the inside wall.
Yeah, I mean, he also ran into the back of the 7 of McLaren. Also, an update. It has officially been changed. Single file restarts from here on out for these drivers.
Wow, near miss there by a driver. Trying to see who that was. They just barely snuck through that wreck. I think that might have possibly been the 85. As Causey goes around, he was on some fresher tires in that Budweiser Chevrolet, and we're now going to take a look here at the hard impact sustained by the 33 of John Whitendorf.
Yeah, Whitendorf just nowhere to go, and also Leach running into McLaren there. So many cars just running hard and not a lot of space.
That car that I've said had a real close miss was the 63 of Hank Steinmiller. He almost was swept up into the 33's wreck. Boy, that's a lot of damage on that 33 machine of John Whitendorf. And now we're going to take a look at the hard impact that Jonathan Leach had. And I mean, it was another case of committed to a lane, and all of a sudden, McLaren just slides up into his path, nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I've been trying to look at the Blaine Atkin and Causey incident, and it looked like Causey was trying to pinch down on the faster machine of Blaine Atkin, and it's one of those racing deals. We're running late in the race. There's not a lot of give. There's a lot of take going on, and honestly, right there, it looked like Causey was trying to pinch the 05 and might have backfired on the 8 machine.
Well, we mentioned the fact these drivers coming in tonight, no faster pairs at their disposal. That hard impact for Jonathan Leach. He brought his car down pit road and immediately made the left-hand turn to the garage area. So he will join Shane Lake back there and will finish, it looks like, somewhere around the 29th position. Looks like there's enough laps that drivers like AJ DeMarzo, Randy Koke, and Ernest King, they can pick up that one valuable spot, subsequently pick up some valuable points here in the closing stages.
Less than 10 laps to go, and Gerald Campbell kind of didn't have the best restart. He was clogged up by the 4 machine that made him lose a lot of time on our lead pack of groups. Now we're going to be seeing Gerald Campbell, Blaine Atkin, kind of our most notoriously known drivers to get the best launches during single file restarts, and they're going to be starting in 5th and 6th position. This is going to be a wild run to the end as both of them on fresh tires.
And of course, this may not be our final run to the checkers. As you said, there is that one potentiality of an overtime green-white checkered. But yeah, I mean, the thing that really worked out for Bo Brady there was the fact that not only did the 4 of James Roth cause some issues for Gerald Campbell, but Kyle Johnson on those older tires did a pretty good job of blocking and holding off the fresher tires of Jason Hounshell. So Bo Brady certainly hoping that that defense will be played again back there in the battle for third. Also, with it being the single file restart, he's got to hope he can have a decent enough start to open up at least somewhat of a gap to make sure that it's something he can maintain if those fresher tires get up into second place.
Yeah, and we've been seeing a lot of cars involved in some of these massive wrecks that have come out. Biggest surprise is the fact that Jeff Green's number 2 machine is still running, because he's been around a lot of these wrecks and somehow has snuck his way through. And right now, Jeff Green is surprising me. Remember, he won our heat race. He's now in 7th place. He's on the same tire compounds in the same really length of time as we've been seeing with Campbell and Atkins. So in striking distance is Jeff Green to possibly go back-to-back here after winning back at Bristol.
Now, we did have a couple of drivers come down and take on their final set of tires. Dallas Myhan in the 41, James Roth in the 4, but they're going to be restarting all the way back in 17th and 18th position. We're going back green with officially 7 laps to go. That's not counting the possibility of that overtime green-white checkered. I just don't think that's enough time. Probably just the mentality of, let's come down, see how much forward progress we can make in the closing stages of this race. Maybe not necessarily a race-winning move.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cars that are inside of 10th to about where they're running and back in around 18th, 17th place, that there's a lot of cars with a lot of damage. So if you can get fresh tires, aiming for at least a top 10 finish, a top 15 finish is what these cars are looking for. And up front, I mean, our top 3 are sitting ducks. I mean, top 4 at this point are sitting ducks to the rest of the cars with fresher tires. But here goes Kyle Johnson, green flag out in the air, idiot car trying to make the pass on the 3.
Boy, I'm not certain about that move there, because the green flag hadn't officially flown. He did give the spot back, did Kyle Johnson, but he was alongside of Christopher Morse Jr. before they even got to the start-finish line.
Blaine Atkin did not get the best start for that 0-5, but Gerald Campbell did. He's on the back bumper of the 0-0, and now on the inside of Jason Hounshell. But Kyle Johnson now going to be side by side. Campbell's blocked.
Boxed in behind the 88 in the 0-0. Kyle Johnson continuing to fight for that third position. Hounshell almost squeezed to the wall. Campbell might shoot up the middle. No, instead goes to the bottom. He's going to ride the apron all the way into turn 1. He's going to stick the 88 to the top.
3-wide action, and Kyle Johnson almost got a little bit of clip there, but able to hold on, and now going to be ducking it low. Here comes Blaine Atkin. He saved those tires. Now he's going to duck to the inside of the 88. A block by Kyle Johnson. Contact! Kyle Johnson, Blaine Atkin, as Kyle Johnson explodes to the inside wall.
Caution is out as Blaine Atkin, make that actually, Bo Brady had actually just taken the lead back from Christopher Morse Jr., who had taken the lead out of turn 2. So the 20 car still the leader with this caution coming out. Big wreck over on the back straightaway.
Due to when this caution came out, this might be putting us into a green-white checkered.
Boy, Blaine Atkin, you mentioned about the fact that he's so good at these restarts, but did not get the restart he was looking for there. May have been in a bit of desperation mode, and Kyle Johnson, who last couple of restarts has been blocking the fresher tires behind them, this block just did not pan out.
Yeah, no, that was one of the most aggressive blocks that Kyle Johnson could have done, and that just ruined his race as well as Blaine Atkin's race. It really wasn't needed. I mean, both drivers were going to have to come up at some point to get the right arc into the corner. And, you know, Blaine Atkin was just trying to make a pass on the inside, and Kyle Johnson did not give any opening there and ruined both those drivers' races.
Incredible the fact that Blaine Atkin's car spun back up into the entrance of turn 3 and nobody hit him. I mean, that was a recipe for another multi-car wreck. Amazingly enough, it's just those 2 cars, the 05 and the 88, that are involved in this 6th caution of the night.
Yeah, it was really rewatching, because there were a lot of cars extremely close to Kyle Johnson when they were coming past him. But yeah, now with Atkin now out of this thing, Jeff Green up to 5th place. Green's going to have to figure out how to get by Hounshell, but Campbell now in a very good position, because now the 2 drivers in front of him, there isn't a wall anymore once we go green again.
And that was some great racing that was going on for the top position between Bo Brady and Christopher Morse Jr. They still will be first and second, but we saw that Campbell was not afraid to go all the way down to the grass on the front straightaway. Definitely would not put it past him if he's got the opportunity to go back down there again to try and make a pass for second on Morse Jr. or a pass for the lead on Bo Brady. Is this caution is going to put Jake Houndshell back on the lead lap. He'll get the lucky dog. He'll be the last car in the lead lap in the 24th spot.
Yeah, 24 cars still running, and Jonathan Leach, another car that it was going to officially get a DNF here. And that was a looking at the cars that are coming into the pits, we still have multiple machines in here. And we got Hamlet as well as Whitendorf still in the pits trying to get repairs done and getting back out there. Trying not to go a lap down is for both those drivers, and I believe they both will be able to get out of the pits in time. But single file restart once again here, Seth, and due to the fact the lights are still on, we are going to be going into our one attempt at a green, white, checkered, unless the system decides we're going to do a one-lap shootout.
I was going to say, if the lights go out this next time around, it is going to be a one-lap shootout, which, in my opinion, I think would be the best possible scenario for Bo Brady, because only one lap, 4 corners to try and hold off the fresh tires of Gerald Campbell. Yeah, I would take that any day over having to hold him off for 2 laps.
Yeah, but I believe the admins would be pushing it then and add another caution lap to make sure that it goes into a green, white, checkered. Because, yes, it would help the front two if they can get a real good launch. But Gerald Campbell's been on it. He has been right on the tail bumper of the drivers whenever they take off at these launches. So the advantage really goes to the 25 machine unless a quick caution comes out, which is very possible with the fact that everyone is in that take and not give mentality.
You look at the drivers up here at the front, so many different stories in these 98 laps. You got Bo Brady. He had that off-sequence strategy along with Kyle Johnson early on in this race, was able to get himself up to second place, has now got himself out in front after nearly pulling off the victory last week at Bristol. He's got a shot of maybe taking the checkered flag here tonight at Las Vegas. Christopher Morse Jr. never even got to take the green flag last week at Bristol. He's got a shot for his first win of the season. Campbell, as you mentioned, has been the strongest car of the night, started on pole, looking to go coast to coast. Jason Houndshell has been consistent all night. He's been up in the top 5 pretty much the entire evening. Jeff Green started this race all the way back from 27th, had to qualify his way in through the LCQ. He's 5th. And how about Joshua Personette? We saw him about 3 cautions ago, free-falling through the field on the older tires. He came down, got the 4 fresh ones. He's back up there now in the 6th position for this restart.
Yeah, and this is going to be setting up our green, white, checkered here. Our only attempt is going to be going on. Your telemetry is going to update once they cross the line. So it's going to be adjusting for us as it goes on, but you'll see on track, it is going to be a dogfight for most of these drivers. I mean, before we get going, we got to thank all the sponsors for these drivers. You got Juicebox Podcast as well as the Dirty Racing Podcast. Both those podcasts, big supporters to this league. And then also you've got Belly Up Sports and them sponsoring this race for the Belly Up 100.
You talk about Belly Up Sports and you mentioned dogfight. Just looked at our telemetry. Look who's running in 9th place. Tyler Riggs, who has been having to deal with front-end damage since lap 17. This is why you stay in this race, because you never know what's going to happen. Right now, Riggs in line for a top 10 run with a wounded race car as we are green, white, checkered racing.
Green flag up in the air, and really it looked like Morris Jr. was not able to get the launch that he wanted, but here comes Campbell already on the inside of the 3, and Bo Brady is sitting duck now in first place.
Now Bo Brady, what's he going to be able to do? Can he block any advances the fresh tires of Gerald Campbell might bring to the table? Campbell's going to close up with the draft here down the back straightaway. He might have a shot on him out of turn 4.
Campbell wants the white flag. It's going to give him a shot. He needs a white flag, not a yellow. As we're coming to the straightaway, this is going to be the white flag for the Dirty Racing Podcast.
Brady right down in the bottom. He says, if you're going to go around me, Campbell, you got to do it on the top side. He's going to hold it right down the inside, drifts up into the 25. Morse tries to get a run on the inside line. Campbell's clear for the lead.
Gerald Campbell, just like that, the fresher tires allows them on the outside to make the pass, and now starts to pull away. Will Brady able to hold on for second place. Also, the battling going on for fifth place is starting to get a little hectic.
Got nearly a wreck back there between Guarneri, Steinmiller, and Green, but off turn 4, Campbell goes 2 for 2 at the mile and a half. He'll win the Belly Up Sports 100 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
And becoming our first driver to get 2 wins this season, and already being the points leader, this helps so much for this 25 car to extend his lead.
Coast to coast pole to win for Gerald Campbell, but a couple of bumps along the road as well, having to deal with drivers that spun their tires on the restart, being involved in the first caution of the evening, but battling his way back. It's been a night of coming back from adversity, and Campbell's going to get to burn it down here tonight in front of these Las Vegas fans.
Kyle Johnson, believe, had an issue as their telemetry gets fixed up, but Gerald Campbell able to get the win. Bo Brady second. Christopher Morse Jr. going to get that third place finish. And Jeff Green was not able to hold off in fifth place, dropping back to sixth position.
Steinmiller is going to get that top 5 with Green, Guarneri, Riggs in 8th. I cannot believe that car was able to still finish top 10. Peyton Hill and Caden Thor in their limited starts. Great performances for those 2 drivers. They're going to get top 10s in the conclusion of tonight's festivities as Gerald Campbell, that DuPont Chevrolet, burns it down for a second time this season. And as you said, the first multi-time winner here in the Grand National Series.
Yeah, other drivers, I'm surprised on how well they were able to finish out this race. Tom Bourne, of those drivers that on the last time coming to the pits, really, that 54 machine, able to get 11th place finish. But Gerald Campbell, I mean, with the way that this race started, getting spun out, bringing out our first caution on lap 17, to now winning this race, I mean, it has been a doozy of a day for this 25 machine, but able to get it done with the right tire strategy that got him the win.
We had no caution come out there on the final lap of this race, but I think Joshua Personette might have run into a bit of an issue on that green-white checkered. Restarted in 6th, crossed the line to take the checkers in 18th place, still finishing on the lead lap. And then you'll go on down through here, and these are all drivers that dealt with issues ranging from getting involved in wrecks to having some rather bad pit stops during that round of green flag pit stops, a lot of it due to the untimely caution coming out.
Yeah, that caution really hurt Bo Brady as well as Kyle Johnson, I think the most. But Kyle Johnson, I mean, it was looking like maybe he could come back after getting involved and hitting the wall when they were 3 wide for the lead. But then that hard block that he tried to put on Blaine Atkin, that just backfired and really threw away what was looking like at least a decent top 5 run for that 88 machine.
And you talk about Gerald Campbell, a lot of things going right for him tonight. The pole, the win, leading the point standings, but a lot of the drivers that are trying to run him down for the points lead struggled here tonight as well. Of the drivers in the top 5 in the standings, the highest one to finish was Dallas Myhead all the way back in 12th. Whitendorf, Jake Hounshell, Blaine Atkin all ran into some issues late in this race, and so they're going to be losing quite a bit of points to Gerald Campbell here tonight.
Yeah, and the consistency just continues to be on this 25 machine, who has just been up in the top 5 almost week after week, and that's what you're going to need if you want to get the championship done. Remember, there's no playoffs. This is based on how the whole entire season is going to go down. There's still a lot of racing to go on.
And on the flip side, drivers that were just outside of the top 5, Jeff Green, Hank Steinmiller, and Jason Hounshell, 6th, 7th, and 9th in points, all finished inside the top 5. So we're going to have some drivers moving up and some drivers falling down after tonight's race at Las Vegas. Could be an entirely different order of the top 10 when we get to Phoenix Raceway next week. But let's see if we can get some of our top 3 finishers from tonight's event. Let's kick things off with a guy that was adminning the race last week at Bristol, but brings it home 3rd place here tonight in Las Vegas, and that's Christopher Morse Jr. Hey, Chris, it's Sam and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I got you guys. What's going on?
Well, man, I mean, first of all, great to see you back in the car here this week, but we saw you, along with a couple of other drivers, kind of on a little bit of an off-sequence strategy out there on somewhat older tires, but you were able to hold off enough drivers to get that podium finish. How difficult was it trying to hold off those fresher tires behind you there, especially not only in this final green-white checker, but the restart before that?
The single file restarts make it a little bit easier, and I didn't push the tires that I had too hard, so they weren't too far off sequence. Really, just multiple cautions back to back kind of kept me from having a shot at the win. But Gerald's fast either way. I don't know what we got to do. We got to handicap him or something.
Well, I mean, obviously, as we mentioned, you were doing the admin duties last week, so you weren't able to race in that Bristol event. Subsequently lost quite a number of spots in the standings. Obviously, this is a great run to begin the comeback trail, but do you think you still got a shot here this season with the number of races left to be able to get yourself back up there, at least into the top 5, and maybe still battle for this championship?
No, I don't think so. I think missing Bristol kind of put the nail in the coffin. We have the one drop week, but I had pretty poor finishes at Richmond and Charlotte, so I think that's kind of out of the question. But now I get to be in the position that Gerald and Hank and John and some of them were in the 87 series, where I get to come mess with them while they run for a championship now. So it's all good. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, it's been a wild race for us to see up in the booth. It seemed like for a lot of drivers, it was all about, if you were stuck on the high side, pinching down the car on the low side. How was that for you, trying to hold your line if you were on the inside, or even trying to challenge the car that was on the inside?
I mean, the inside was there, but you almost kind of had to do a bit of a slide job type maneuver to make it work. And if you did that, you were eating tires. So really, you wanted the high lane. I don't know. I've been making the setups and working on them with the guys the last few weeks, so they feel a little bit different than just the regular week-to-week setups. We've been trying to make them a little bit more stable, so more people can keep them underneath them and have a shot at running for the win and whatnot. And I feel like we kind of made the top line a little bit too good this week, but it was multi-lane racing, which was cool to see. I don't think we've done that too much this season.
Definitely was multi-lane racing. It was a lot of fun to watch from the spectator point of view, that's for sure. But congratulations there, Chris, on a third place run here tonight for that number 3 machine. We're now going to turn the microphone over. Let's do some shout outs.
Yeah, I want to thank Belly Up for jumping on board. Hopefully they'll join us again pretty soon. Go check them out at Belly Up Sports on Twitter. They've got so many different pages, from wrestling to football to esports and all that fun stuff. I want to thank all the people who've been watching. We've been checking out the numbers on YouTube and Facebook weekly, and it's cool to see it keep growing. As you guys can see, we've been getting more drivers every single week. So it's just really cool to see what we've been able to do in a short amount of time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to get good. Phoenix next week should be a lot of fun.
Definitely looking forward to that duel in the desert. That's Christopher Morris Jr. brings us home third place here tonight at Las Vegas. Once again, congratulations on a great run there, Chris. Looking forward to seeing how this momentum carries over when we eventually head to Phoenix next week.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night, guys.
Let's see if we can get our second place finisher, Bo Brady. Hey, Bo, it's us up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I hear you.
Man, I mean, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for you. You nearly pull off the win last week at Bristol and almost were able to get it here tonight at Las Vegas. Man, that strategy almost worked out into your favor. What little bit different do you think there needed to be here in the closing stages for you to be able to close this thing out with the W?
Well, towards the end there was a caution with like 10, 12 laps to go, something like that. Kyle and I were sitting pretty, good up front, and I was feeling like maybe we could have finished it out from there. That kind of hurt us a little bit, but I mean, these guys with the fresher tires, they're so fast. It's rough holding them off.
We saw some great battling going on between you and Kyle Johnson, not only when you guys have been able to get up there to first and second with the fresh tires, but then after that as well. And it looked like for a brief moment there as well, coming down to around 15 laps to go, you guys were still being able to hold off those fresh tires. So do you think if the thing had gone green to the end and not had those late race yellows, more than likely it would have come down between you and the 88 for this win?
Yeah, me and him are teammates, and we honestly planned the tire strategy like that, because we saw how long the green flag runs were going. So we knew that there was a very high possibility we could finish this thing under green. So we pitted early, and trying that long strategy, it almost worked out. I mean, if we would have went green, I think we could have held them off and been okay.
I mean, in terms of momentum here, Bo, you've definitely got it on your side. Bristol was a great run for you, a great run here tonight at Las Vegas. We've got Phoenix next week. So how do you carry this momentum into the desert? And do you think that maybe, just maybe, that momentum is going to translate into a win next week?
Well, I've been knocking on the door. I feel like a win's coming, and Phoenix is one of my favorite tracks. I grew up around there, so I love that track. So it's going to be a good run.
Well, Bo, congratulations on a Second place finish here this evening. So close to being able to get that victory, but been great to see you finishing up there inside the top 5 the past couple of weeks, and hopefully this carries, as we said, over into Phoenix next week. We're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Flatout Racing, Dirty Racing Podcast, Chris Morris for putting this on, my spotter, Jaden Dahlberg, for really sending me. I mean, he helped me through that whole race. And, everyone for competing. I mean, it's awesome having everyone out here. So thank you.
That's Bo Brady. This finish here tonight, second place, undoubtedly will move him up into the top 10 in the standings. Congratulations on a great run, Bo. And as I said, looking forward to seeing this momentum carry over into Phoenix next week.
Yep. See you guys later.
And last but not least, we're going to go down to Victory Lane. Second time this season, Gerald Campbell gets to celebrate tonight. It's at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Hey, Gerald, it's Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network Studios. You got me?
Hey guys, I hope you didn't fall asleep there.
Definitely did not. Multi-groove racing, 3 wide all the way through the field, sometimes for the race lead, and man, what a finish there. I mean, we had that late race caution come out. You had the green-white checkered on tap, the 2 drivers ahead of you on older tires. I mean, obviously you had to be sitting there with the mentality of, I've got him, but how do you strategize getting around those drivers knowing that they're probably going to do a lot of mirror driving to try and keep you at bay?
You just got to put it to where their car wouldn't allow them to. Essentially, I saw Jeff Green, having to do a last lap pass, and man, I had to, try to show it up a little bit, so I took it on the outside.
I mean, obviously, it's great to see you in Victory Lane. It's your second win of the season. But if we go all the way back to the beginning of this race, back to lap 17, it almost ended up being you be the first car in the garage here, getting involved in that wreck. I mean, it didn't look like you got that much damage, but did it affect your car for the rest of the race?
It affected my strategy. I was, from the get-go, was just very much tire saving. I thought this was going to be a mirror image of Charlotte, where it's all going to be about tire saving. So, I mean, I was backing up through the field just trying to save as much as I can. And as soon as it got spun, there went all my tires. And these cars with these new tire models, as soon as they get spun out, it's like someone took a jackhammer and was just chiseling off pieces of your rubber, because it tore up those tires for me. And that's what ruined it more than any kind of damage. The damage on these things can be fixed up and still be pretty good. But the tire situation, when we have so limited tires in this series, coming back up through the field, which I did, but just not to the extent if I had not had that incident happen. As soon as that caution, or as soon as I got spun, it was all up in the air as far as what strategy would work out and what was I going to play. I just tried to capitalize what I thought would work or what I didn't. So luckily, just the cautions came out at the right time, and I still had the car to go out there and put it 3 wide when I needed to and go hard when I had to. I just feel bad for the 07 and those guys that I accidentally got into a jam there. Didn't mean to do that at the one point of the stage. So other than that, everything seemed to just turn around as soon as I turned around. So yeah, no. Other than that, I can't be too upset about it.
Gerald, obviously we covered you back during the midway portion of the G-Force Vintage Cup Series, and you came into that midway portion of the season not in the hunt for the championship, so you were out there just trying to win races. Looking ahead to Phoenix and the point situation heading into there as opposed to the point situation coming into tonight's race at Las Vegas, you pick up the victory. A lot of the drivers behind you that were within striking distance struggled here tonight. So do you go into Phoenix kind of with the same mentality you had back in the Vintage Cup Series of now I can kind of go out there, go hard, and try and pick up another victory, maybe not have to be back in that tire conservation mode that you were in here tonight?
Heck yeah, I love going for the wins, man. I don't do points racing. I do wins. And Phoenix is a good race for me. I love Phoenix, so I'm really excited for that. Expect me to cut that infield and try to. I don't know if I think it's going to be the Legacy, so it might not have that infield. It might be a bad idea to go through the infield because there might be grass there at this point in time. But expect me to make moves, obviously, and try to see if I can continue my 4 qualifying pole streak that I'm going. Go for a 5th one. I think my qualifying record right now is 1.1 something. So it's going good on the qualifying end of things. So. I was kind of hoping the wins would be more like the qualifying poles that I've had so far. But fun racing. Look forward to Phoenix. That's going to be a heck of a racetrack. That's those flat tracks, those to me are what I excel at. So I'm gonna go to Phoenix with a lot of high hopes to try to capitalize and continue the good luck of that I've had as of late, and go in there with head of steam and make it to where no one has to worry about points racing.
Well, Gerald, you're right. We're going to Phoenix Raceway Legacy next week, but don't worry about cutting the grass there because you nearly cut the grass a couple of times in the front straightaway here tonight as well. But man, great run for you here tonight. An exciting finish there at the end with a car that could have very nearly been wrecked in the first 20 laps of this race. Your first multi-time winner of the season as well. And right now, you are a perfect 2 for 2 at the mile and a half. So we're going to turn the microphone over to you now and let you do some shout-outs.
Yeah, thanks to PRM, my teammates. I got a bunch of them in there. Morris. Joseph Causey, Tyler Riggs, all those guys. PRM's a fun group to hang out with, and Joe can have fun with. Can make a boring race or a sad race into a fun race. So thanks to those guys. Thanks to you guys. One of the most exciting part of it is going back and watching it over with all the excitement that you guys bring to the table. So thank you guys for doing what you guys do. I always enjoy it. You make me seem like a hero. But what I've always told you guys, I just want to go out there, put on a show for you guys, and try to go for a win. So go on to the next one and see if we can make that one the most exciting race. Jeff Green kind of blew up the whole series with that exciting finish she got. So kind of jealous. I want to try to see if I can go get the one that everyone talks about. So yeah, other than that, guys, thank you, and we'll see you guys next week. And thanks to all the fans that decided to stick around, and of course, always think of Vet. I'm a big supporter of VFW. I've always been a member of VFW, and go think of Vet no matter what the time, date, doesn't matter the holiday. See a Vet, you thank them for their service, and other than that, guys, appreciate it.
Well, that's Gerald Campbell. He wants to put on a show, and he put on a smoke show here tonight for the Las Vegas fans, winning here tonight at Las Vegas Motor Speedway in the Belly Up Sports 100. Congratulations there, Gerald, on your second win of the season, and we look forward to seeing you carry this momentum into the desert next week at Phoenix.
I can't wait. See you guys then.
And that is going to conclude our coverage after a long one here tonight, a long qualifying session, a long 100 laps for these drivers at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. But at the end of the night, it's Gerald Campbell picking up his second win of the season and stretching his points lead heading into next week. Next week, it's going to be the Arizona 125 at the Legacy Phoenix Raceway. And as Gerald pointed out, the Legacy Phoenix, that back straightaway is grass covered. That apron is not available to these drivers. So it's going to be a little bit more of a narrower Phoenix for these drivers to have to maneuver around for 125 laps. I want to thank Samuel Dyer for joining me here tonight. He had to step out early. He's been feeling under the weather, so I appreciate him fighting through it here tonight to join me for this race at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight. Hope you enjoyed our coverage. For Samuel Dyer, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy what's left of your Tuesday evening. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.